Good evening and welcome to the Westborough Select Board meeting called here on Tuesday, November 4th, being 6 p.m. I will convene the meeting and ask all those that are able to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Going to make a quick adjustment to the agenda tonight. So before we go to open forum, I'm going to go to item number 2, which is the easement acceptance for 208 Turnpike Road, because our town planner is here and has a planning board meeting that she needs to run to. So welcome.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's like, wow, Westborough's changed.
Do you see the same thing on this screen? What's there?
Yeah.
You can see that or the easement?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Let me change the.
Cypress. It's for future consideration.
Okay.
Yep, we can see it both places.
Okay, great. Thank you. So Jenny Gingras, Director of Planning. This is an easement for the B-wall at 208 Turnpike Road, which is where Penta Marketing is currently located. I was at the select board meeting, I don't think it was last meeting, but maybe the meeting before, to talk about the easement at 180 Turnpike Road, which is the adjacent property where Hyundai is. And so this easement would just continue that easement onto 208 Turnpike to meet up with Park Street. And then across the street here, if you can see my arrow, that's 210 Turnpike Road. So the easement, though, that we're talking about is only on 208 Turnpike Road and follows along the back of the property. Right here.
Great. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
If I can. Thank you, Ian. I guess the first question is a technical one on the easement agreement itself. I noticed that it lists 45 West Main Street as the address, being the Forbes building. Is that typical? I guess I never picked up on that before. I would have thought it would have been the town hall address as opposed to the Forbes building. Is that normal? Do we?
I mean, I can look at the other easements. It was drafted that way by town council.
Okay.
So,
Okay, just
but
wanna make sure.
It is, yeah, our location address, one of our locations.
Okay. And then the other question I had was in section 1A. I'm going to scroll down to it here real quick. In section 1A, it talks about what vehicles are allowed to use the easement. And I'm just curious, it wasn't mentioned that any emergency vehicles could be used, motorized emergency vehicles. Would those be allowed on the easement for patrolling, for, very obviously an emergency? I would think there would be no issue, but just normal patrolling. If in the future, the B-wall does go through there, there might be a need. So I'm just curious as to that piece.
Yeah, I'm not sure about patrolling, what you mean by that, but for an emergency purpose, if a fire truck needed to go down there, then they certainly could.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking like if there was if there was a need for the police department or fire department to have an ATV at some future date, be able to patrol down that and check on it on a regular basis. I guess the other thing I didn't notice was the ability to have motorized or electric bikes on the easement as well. It says bikes, so I'm going to assume that includes electric bikes. But just some questions, and I don't know if you have any thoughts or.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a typical easement language that we've done for all of them.
Yeah.
Bikes could include e-bikes up to a certain speed, but it would be, regulations that we would have to look at later on, I'm sure, for the B wall and what we want to see on that path used.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Shelby?
Nope. All set.
Mark?
I didn't have anything.
Okay.
Move that the select,
Sorry, can I just add for your motion, it's moved pursuant to Article 24 of the March 23rd, 2024 town meeting.
Did anybody else get the?
Article 24, the March 23rd, 2024.
Yes.
March 23rd, 2024 town meeting.
2024.
move that the select board accept the easement as presented in under,
Just moved pursuant to that
move
vote.
pursuant to
and then-
Article 24 from the March 23rd, 2024 town meeting as presented for 208 Turnpike Road, Westborough, and authorize the town to execute and record said easement as required.
I think the select board accept the easement.
And that part too.
Yeah.
Seconded.
Okay, any further comments? Not all those in favor? 5-0, 5 being present. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, somebody else does the next one.
Okay, we'll move back on the agenda to open forum. I know we did have a request from the police chief.
We just need to get this notarized, so if you want to sign the easement.
Okay. Chief, did you have some open forum? Yep.
Excuse me. Good evening, Todd Minardi, your police chief. I just wanted to briefly take a minute, seeing as how I'm here, just to touch upon a couple recent incidents we had and just recognize some of our officers that did an outstanding job. It's not really unusual work that they did, but it's not something that the public always hears about. So I thought I would just take the opportunity to mention a couple recent incidents. It was back on October 22nd, approximately 6:30 p.m. The police department received a call of a missing elderly female with some memory loss issues. She had left her house approximately 2 hours prior to go for a walk, and she hadn't returned home. Lieutenant Rossi, Sergeant Tepper, Sergeant Hale, Officer Lawyer, Officer Miranda, and Detective Turco all responded. They searched for approximately an hour unsuccessfully to locate the female. A code red was sent out, and they started initiating cell phone pings. Eventually, those pings were located in a wooded area in town, approximately a mile from our residence. Obviously, by this time, it was dark. It was night. Temperatures were falling. Officers responded to that area. They started, with assistance from the drone, started doing a search of the woods. Ultimately located the female confused and disoriented, but fortunately unharmed. She was ultimately checked out and cleared by the fire department and returned home safely. So given the temperatures dropping down at night at this time of the year, and the fact that she was out in the middle of the woods, I think we're very fortunate that we had a positive outcome. So I want to congratulate the officers on the great job they did there. Additionally, on October 27th, Officers Scanlon and McKernan were dispatched along with the fire department to the Westborough Tennyson Swim Club for an unresponsive male. They were notified that CPR was in progress. Officer Scanlon arrived within less than a minute and took over doing CPR. Ultimately, an AED was used and a shock was advised and administered. Officer McKernan took over CPR, and upon arrival of the fire department, they determined that a pulse was detected and advanced life support was initiated by the fire department and the patient was transported. So another great job by those officers. Again, that's really just a snapshot of work we do every day, but I don't always get the chance to recognize the officers that do such a great job. I also wanted to just let you know that tomorrow afternoon, myself and members of my command staff will be up at the Doubletree for the AAA Northeast Traffic Safety Awards. I'm happy to announce that the Westborough Police Department's the recipient of a gold award for our traffic safety initiatives. And the Traffic Safety Leadership Award recipient will be Lieutenant Cliff Luce. for his work on our selective traffic enforcement program, his years of involvement with the Semlec Crash Recon Unit. They also recognizing us for our online complaint portal through the town, which we find very useful in our use of our speed and traffic counters for our data-driven approach in our traffic enforcement program. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. And thank you to our officers as well. Please pass that along on behalf of the board. Anybody else for open forum? Okay, seeing none, we will move to item 3 on the agenda, Select Board, Planning Board Memorandum of Understanding.
Sure. Let me take it? Sure. Okay. For the public benefit, and obviously the board has this in their packet, some time ago, the development team initiated discussions about how town-sponsored development projects such as B-Walt, the downtown plan, et cetera, would be overseen by the select board and planning board.
Sorry, that agreement.
The agreement, I'm like. And so given kind of these large projects and understanding the independence of said boards, the chairs and vice chairs of the 2 respective boards met with development team members to establish basically a memorandum of understanding to clarify the roles and responsibilities of each board. And so we did that over the course of 2 or 3 meetings, reviewed this memorandum, had some great conversation, and the memorandum of understanding that is before the board now is the one that is up for our board's discussion. This would be the first time the board is seeing it. Obviously, Ann and I have reviewed this and, if you will, negotiated this, if that's the right word. And so just here to answer any questions from the board. But before I do that, just for the public's benefit, since you're not actually seeing it, although you'll be able to see it as obviously a public document, it effectively has a handful of sections. So it talks about the intent of the memorandum is to memorialize understanding between the select board and planning board on how development projects are administered while ensuring transparent and effective communications between these 2 boards as well as with relevant staff members. And it clarifies the role of each board, and it says basically that the memorandum is not to establish silos around each board that would otherwise limit their opportunities to contribute to the effective implementation of town efforts on various development and or planning projects, but rather to ensure that each board is afforded opportunities through which they may offer comments, ask questions, or discuss details to better understand the project while maintaining the appropriate jurisdiction and independence of both boards. And so with that in mind, the document talks about or speaks to development application through the planning board and kind of what that process is, development, planning, and capital projects. And obviously there's some detail in here, and the development, kind of a high level overview of what the process will be around that. And I'm happy to answer the board's, and I can answer any questions.
Thank you.
Yep.
Open up for questions. Any? Mark?
Yeah, so I thought the memorandum was, the memo, we'll call it,
It's too hard to say.
was well written. I just had one question on part 3, development projects. The second sentence, the appropriate staff for each project shall be determined by the town manager and community development director. What if the appropriate staff is the planning director? Shouldn't they be consulted on? I mean, we can't, or maybe the assistant planner. Like I'm just a little clear
tell
as
me
to how we
where-
can direct.
I think
3A.
3A.
3A, second
Development
sentence.
projects.
I'm not sure of your question, Mark. Like,
Well,
I just want to make sure I understand what
well,
you're actually
the
asking.
planning director and reports to the planning board,
Right.
not to the town manager. So, I mean, is this post planning involvement, this 3A, or because I'm just a little unclear as to wouldn't there be a potential?
So there's two parts to that. So this is sort of after the planning process has completed. And then the full context says development projects recommended by a planning process that are approved through the capital planning process shall be led. So any project that comes forward would still need to go onto the capital plan and need to be approved through that process. And then we would identify appropriate staff to bring that forward. So the director of planning may be a part of the actual construction, but that's typically led by the Public Works Department. And then below it says, regardless of the planning department's involvement in implementation, so there's still opportunity for them to be involved. They could go back. So we can't direct them to be involved, but they wouldn't lead a construction project anyway.
And there wasn't, our planning director was involved, obviously the chair and vice chair were not, that didn't raise any concerns.
Okay, I just want to make sure that, I'm just trying to envision actual projects going through this timeline, and would there be a project that got to this 3A stage where it would be led by the planning director and not by DPW?
It could be, it could be that it's just saying that the appropriate staff shall be determined by town manager and community development director.
So that's where I worry that there's a conflict, because if the appropriate staff is the planning director,
Yep.
can Christie determine that?
Well, I think this follows on from section 2. Is that?
Yeah.
So section 2 is run by the planning.
I'm probably making a mountain out of,
Yeah, so I just think if you go back to section 2,
yeah.
so it has to go through section 2 to get to section 3. Section 2 is led by the planning director and the planning board.
And if you look at it practically, when you look at the Otis Street project or other road projects or even trail development, that actual construction piece is led by Public Works.
Okay.
And I think the other piece, just to highlight what Shelby said too, is that it's not, I mean, this is going to always be modified as we go. If we find that there's an issue there,
Okay.
we can
that,
modify
that
it.
makes sense too.
But I think
Okay, that's
it's
fine.
definitely not working in silos. I think that was we spent a lot of time talking about that. It really is to highlight the collaboration that's there, but who leads projects, whatever. And that's-
Yes.
yeah.
No. That was the only point where I
Yep.
was like, geez,
No, thank you.
maybe we should add the planning director to the list of people there. I don't know.
I think my sense is their involvement beforehand was all like sort of the initial vetting of the project and working through that. And so once the project goes forward, I am confident that if there's the need for a member of the planning staff to be part of that, then they would be named as a member of that project team.
Right.
And obviously, maybe if there's an approval to be made by the planning board to say, yes, we support the planning director, that would be part of the process that we didn't outline here, but.
Okay. I just,
Thank you. Yep. John.
So, thank you. I think this looks good. So going forward, as we discuss projects as they come before us, we'll be walking through this, applying this memorandum, and so as the planning board starts projects, they will let us know sort of where the touch points are for us based on this document as well.
Yep. And through the document, it really puts the responsibility of the town manager. The town manager has the responsibility to inform the select board to bring it in front of us at key points. So, yeah, again, it's a collaboration and communication piece, but it really gets back to leadership and who does what when.
Sounds good.
Patrick.
Yeah, so I'll just say thank you to the whole team on both sides of the house, working on the MOU and getting this done. I think it really will help clarify. I actually took the time to draw a crude flow chart to make sure kind of I understood it. This is like my background, right? This is the type of stuff I do. So I really appreciated the work and understood it. I do have a couple of questions. Mark, you touched on one, and I thought of that as well, but I will say that I felt after I read it a couple of times, I realized that's post project decision. So to me, it makes sense. It does. I'm not worried about that scenario so much. I think it makes sense the way it is right here. But I did have a couple of questions. I guess I'll start off with. I just want to make sure I understand in section 2B, it talks about including proposed funding sources at that point during the process. And then later on, it talks about the capital planning process. Is the capital planning process part of that funding? Meaning at 2B, will we have, I'll say, draft capital planning requirements understood at that point?
No.
So then is that not a potential later on that we would then have to open up the funding discussion a second time to understand any changes that might have occurred between 2B and later on into, I think it's 2E, I think it is, where we talk about the capital planning.
So the intent of B is to have a touch point with the select board before a project even gets started. And so the identification of funding sources could be as general as a grant funding, TIP funding, asking the town meeting to fund it through free cash. All of that would be generally identified up front, in addition to just explaining to the select board a project that they wanted to move forward with, and then the select board would provide comment. And that's the purpose of that, is again that initial touch point, so that if the select board says, we don't think that's a priority, we don't think that's something that you should be working on right now, you can provide that feedback before we've done anything
Early on.
Yeah.
Sure.
Once we move through that process, once we move through these other steps, then the actual project would have to get, so potentially construction, because we're talking about the rotary, the B-wall, any of those projects, it would have to go to a construction point where it would end up, where it would be on the capital plan. And at that point, again, we would have to schedule it against other priorities.
Okay. That's very helpful.
I think the intent there too was to not understanding that you have sort of the capital planning process on its track, but projects and opportunities might come up through the planning board. So it wasn't to halt their work based on that schedule, to allow it to go forward, to identify
Sure.
kind of preliminary sources of funding,
Yep.
and still understand that major projects have to go through this other process.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I just wanted to understand that relationship between the capital planning and the early on funding discussion. My second question is on section 2B. What I see here, and I guess in 2B, it says, regardless of the planning department's involvement in implementation, any identified need to significantly divert from the original plan shall be reviewed by the planning board for the purpose of providing comments and recommendations.
Where are you? I'm sorry.
I'm on
3B.
3B, excuse me. Sorry, 3B. Sorry.
on 2B.
I scrolled down too fast. 3B, the very bottom there. So 3B, I guess I was a little surprised not to see the select board also provided the opportunity at that step, if in fact there was any identified need to significantly divert from the original plan, meaning there could be, I would assume that the funding is an example of a part of the plan is the funding. It could, a significant diversion from the original plan could alter the funding need, whether it's a grant or whether it's some other capital planning requirement. So I would suggest that we include the select board in that.
So
as
the
well,
idea,
unless you have
so the idea at least was the select board, the select board is fully responsible for the funding throughout. That's the idea of the way the document is drafted, and the planning department is responsible for the initial design or creation of the plan.
Yep.
And so the reason that, so I guess what we're saying in A is other people besides the director of planning could be leading this project, but we might get to a point, and I'm making this up, where we're sort of building a trail, or we're about to build the trail, and we have to go a completely different way than we had intended. Because the planning board had vetted and worked through that plan, then you would have to go back to the planning board to say, hey, we want to go left instead of right.
Well, okay, just to be really clear here, we're talking left and right. We're talking about a direction of, you used the example of a trail, but you're talking about that shift in the actual
I'm
plan
talking
itself.
about the actual plan.
You're talking like physically, we're going to move from
Physically,
here to
yeah.
there. Right. And in that sense, I mean, there could be all sorts of different changes that impact it, from easement requirements to other funding needs, I would imagine, in that scenario that could come up, that I would think might need to come back to the select board.
So,
Yeah, and I would think that
no, go ahead.
that as I looked at this, speaking of your flow chart, it actually goes from 3B back up to 2.
Right.
Okay.
And then it
Yeah.
comes, so if you flow chart it back up,
Well,
it's
that's kinda
it's
what
kind of
it
that
does.
yes/no
Yeah.
piece, and it
Yeah,
says,
yeah.
okay, no, there's a change, go back up, and then it's going to flow back down through again.
Exactly. That's what I think intends, but that's not how it's actually written. So,
You're right, there's not there doesn't say if 3B happens, then the process renews again, just to make sure, like,
Right.
are there new funding sources? Does this need to be, is there a checkoff with the capital planning, et cetera? So we did not build that out as part of the process.
well, it
But
was built
to-
out for half, planning
Right.
board piece, but not
Right.
the select
Well,
board side. So,
But because 2E goes back to, it's from time to time, the project
Right.
team may identify key decision points.
So we'll
So I
get-
think the idea was that once the planning board hands it off to essentially select board departments, which is the public works, if there's a big diversion from the plan, this was just to say it has to go back to the planning board. 'cause
Right,
they
we didn't
need
want to
see it.
exclude them in that process, but that's a good point.
we made a
Christie.
change, we changed your plan, and you don't get a chance to comment.
yeah, no, I get that. And I see where 2E kind of makes that loop back. But again, it just seemed odd to me that 3B didn't also include that piece. I would just say, especially since we call out, the select board and the planning board in 2E, I would have thought the same thing would have happened in 3.
I mean, we could add something potentially, or talk about, I mean, that's the intention, it could be,
Yeah. What would
adding-
you suggest, Patrick, in 3B then?
I would just suggest something as simple as regardless of the planning department's involvement in implementation, any identified significant need to divert from original plan shall be reviewed by both the planning board and the select board for the purpose of providing comments and recommendations. So again, if there's a slight site plan, what Christie just described was actually a physical change to a project. In that case, it could, route in a different location, and there may be, I don't know, just like we're doing a site plan review tonight, we might want to have input into that as to any public safety concerns, et cetera. So,
yeah, well, I think this is different, though, this would already have come before us, before it goes back to the planning department. Because it's happened while it's under our
Right.
control now. It's been passed off, now it's under
Yeah,
select board's control.
okay.
I just feel like if the implementation phase is under the control of,
Oh, that makes
control
sense.
of the select
Yeah.
board, so any significant need to divert from the original plan
Comes
is
to
going
us,
to come to us anyway.
comes to us first, and
Just
then
doesn't
we,
explicitly.
Unless,
It doesn't explicit, that's all, yeah. Okay, as long as that's what is understood
Yes.
and we're interpreting it that way, and that's the expectation of the planning board as well, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
So,
and I think it goes back to that, as Chris said, that 2E. So it basically comes to us first, we can provide comments back to the planning board, but it was meant, and maybe it could be clearer, but I think it's meant that, again, we don't make changes and then not include them in.
yeah, I'm okay. I mean, I
I understand.
think there were some tweaks that could improve on it, but I'm okay with
Yep.
the way it is. And like you said earlier, if we find that there's
We
some
can always-
difficulty
yeah.
in this, it always can come back for further review by both the boards.
Yep. Great.
And that was my last question. Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Someone else want to make it?
Move to approve and execute the memorandum of understanding between the Westborough Select Board and the Westborough Planning Board as presented.
second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0, 5 being present. Just for the public's knowledge, this is also being considered tonight by the planning board, who are meeting simultaneously with us. So hopefully we'll hear back from that hopefully they approve it as well.
And where, once this is approved, Christie, where will this document live in two different places? I would
Yeah, so
imagine?
we'll put it on the select board page, and then I expect that the planning board would also put it on their page.
Maybe under our policies or something, is that where?
It might have its own
So,
'Cause, yeah.
sub-bullet on the left.
all right.
To that point, could you maybe just take away and ask that they do put it out on their site?
Yep.
Just a request from us. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, perfect.
Sorry, keep asking here. Signing at the same time. Okay, slightly early, but I think we set for the site plan review for 222 Turnpike Road and 171 Milk Street? Perfect. Mr. Montelli?
See if I can get the first part right. Good evening. My name is Tom Montelli. My company is Post Road Residential. My father and I, who run the company, have had the pleasure to meet a handful of folks in this room, and we're very excited to be here and provide a brief presentation and summary about the project.
Can I just interrupt you for a minute? If you don't mind kind of pulling up the microphone,
Sure.
just, we get people wanting to make sure they can hear
Is this
it.
okay?
Perfect.
Yes,
That is
thank you.
perfect. Thank
Would
you.
you like me to start over?
Nope.
Okay.
That's good.
So I know we're on a time, so I'll get right into it. The project is what will be 2 parcels, a development, a multifamily development project that is what we call the north parcel and the south parcel. The addresses are as listed on the screen: 171 Milk, 221 and 223 Turnpike for the north parcel, and just south of Route 9, what we're calling the south parcel, which is 222 Turnpike Road. In this presentation, I'll just provide a brief overview of our company, a little bit about the project, and highlight some of the community benefits associated with the project. Just to orient everybody, this is an aerial of the project site. On the left is obviously a existing satellite image with stars more or less located in the center of both the north and the south parcel respectively. And on the right, while it's very small and very hard to see, which I apologize, I think I'd be happy to send everybody the site plans if we don't have it already.
We have the full package.
Okay. Just a brief sort of comparison of the north and the south parcel. So that's just to orient everybody. Milk Street, it's catty-cornered between Milk Street and Route 9. Before I go a little bit more in depth just about the project, just a little bit about our company. My father and I's company, which my father started 10, 15 years ago, is a slight anomaly in the development industry. Usually development companies are large national companies for a number of reasons, and that's where my father got his start. And he decided to create his own company because he wasn't really inspired about what he was doing for the big national companies. One little highlight we always talk about is, we always think about restaurant design and hotel design as sort of the leading indicator for good design, not so much the traditional apartment designs that you see. But the motto of our company sort of signifies that broad difference between sort of the big national company and a small entrepreneurial family company. And that motto is quality over quantity. And those 2 words sort of highlight the main distinction or business models between, let's say, a small company and a big company. Big companies, rightly so, their business model is scale and production and repetition. Ours is we have to compete with those folks as a small company, and the only way we can do that is if we do something better or different, create a different experience. So our company motto is quality over quantity. We're not doing a lot of projects, but when we do it, we bet all in on our time, our money, and dedication to the communities that we're in to really execute a high-level product. I won't read the entire mission statement, but it basically summarizes what we just talked about. And the overall goal, what we think about, what we are really interested and curious about at the beginning stages of these projects is curating experiences, placemaking, and creating communities, because that's what customers of ours and the communities that we work in actually care about. And that's what gets us excited. Just a few quick photos of some of our communities that show some of these different spaces and experiences. This is sort of the front door of one of our recent projects nearby in Marlborough, part of what we call the great room, which is, think of the family room of your house. We try to create spaces within our communities that organically engender interaction. We found that a lot of people who move into apartment homes don't know each other. So the more you can create these vibrant organic interactions, the happier the customer will be. So libraries are one aspect of our design that we spend a lot of time in. Try to create great connections between the indoor and outdoor spaces, which this shows some of our outdoor spaces that last photo was more or less taken from. This is just a little detail to talk about the attention to detail that we like to spend time on. So these are the door handles, and all of the door handles in all of our buildings will have these bronze cast custom-made handles. And the point of it is twofold. Number one, it helps tell a little bit of the story of the community. We call it the software of our business, sort of those qualitative things that you look and touch and feel that really talk about the story. So this building was a former forest that we took a lot of trees down that we then repurposed into the building. So the idea of a saw and the name The Lodge became the story behind the brand. And that brand emanated sort of through marketing and design. And customers like that. They want to feel like where they live is cool and it has a story. And this is a pizza oven that we have in that community that we have a local restaurateur come and cook once in a while. Podcast studio for the creators and the curators of content, and golf. This is somewhere where a couple could go down, meet another couple, play a round of golf, have a drink in an hour, and get to know each other. So these are just some examples of the experience curation that our designers really spend a lot of time thinking about and integrating all of that between the brand, the marketing, and the design of the building. Last photo from a project. This is out in Lynn, Massachusetts, but in this project, Lynn, Massachusetts actually had a very rich boat making history, and we wanted to sort of pay homage to that. The name of this building is the Shipwright, and we decided to buy and restore a old sailboat similar to what some of the sailboats at the Wright brothers in Lynn, Massachusetts and Saugus would build, and we hung it in the lobby. We had boat riggers do it. It's safe. So another example of some of the attention to detail that we try to incorporate into these communities to make them unique. Okay, so a high-level overview of the projects. These will be phased. The north parcel is anticipated to be built first. As it's completing construction, the south parcel would begin construction. The north parcel is 206 units. The south parcel is 182 units. One important thing that we care a lot about is that our team with architects, engineers, general contractors, we've done many, many projects together. And that means a lot just for the general execution of a project, as many of you would understand just from business and working together. Just a few little high-level clips, and I'll take questions after, and we can go into more detail. But generally, smaller units on average than what's in Westborough today. The majority of the units are smaller bedroom types, studios and one bedrooms. One thing we've spoke to a lot of your colleagues about that I think is very important is the distinction of older apartment communities and the management oversight versus a newer institutionally managed building, and what that means for occupancy regulations, what that means for lease controls. We have very strict oversight with our institutional management company. We don't do that in-house. Our company, in fact, doesn't do any of the professional design in-house. We oversee it all, and we're experienced and skilled in it, but similar in management, we hire and partner with somebody like a Graystar, who is, a professional in institutional quality, which is a bad word, but in the capital markets, it's called institutional, but very professionally managed buildings. And we've really worked with them and another group called Bizzuto on every project, and the controls are very, very strict. Just quickly, two last slides. These are some of the community benefits that are associated with the project. The first is a net fiscal benefit to the town. One of the things that I've spent some time on is listening to the different, board meetings. And last month there was a very interesting one that was the tri-board meeting, late September. And it was so interesting hearing you and your colleagues talk about level service, level budgeting. My personal opinion, it doesn't matter, but I agreed with the sentiment. Gosh, it would be very hard not to do level service budgeting in a community like this. So I applaud you guys for your efforts and dialogue around that. But the net fiscal benefit here is very obvious relative to current in-place taxes of the two associated parcels. Tax revenue when the project, meaning both the north and the south parcel, are complete, is estimated to be 23 times in-place taxes. And when you account for anticipated school-age children, which we can talk about 17 times current revenue from taxes. That I don't need to get into it because it's not particularly my company's business to get into the level of detail about that tri-board meeting, but it's relevant. The topic of new growth was discussed. What we think about a lot and we've looked into is suburban office trends and what the impact to those sort of secular investment themes that are occurring in this sort of class, what we call B and C suburban office market, is going to have implications for suburban Metro West communities. So a very strong net fiscal benefit, even anticipating municipal costs is a benefit. Infrastructure benefits, great infrastructure benefits. Number one, the projects, when they're developed, are going to be what's called fully self-mitigating. Take stormwater, for example. Currently, stormwater leaves undeveloped sites, let's say, in an unmitigated way where you have runoff that will usually sheet flow off of the site into the adjacent roads, into catch basins. When the proposed conditions are as such where all of the stormwater is going to be filtrated, there's going to be proprietary water quality units that actually treat the water. So not only will there be less runoff into the streets, significantly less runoff, but you're going to have clean water that's leaving the site, as opposed to current conditions with many sites like this. It can get contaminated, dirty, and then goes into streams and ponds. So stormwater is one example of a really good infrastructure benefit. In addition, there's going to be millions of dollars of fees paid to the town for water and sewer connection or infrastructure needs and improvements. And something we've been discussing with the community for a number of years is the concept of a MassWorks grant. And I'm sure many of you are aware of MassWorks grants. We've done many of them, but there are three components that are really needed for a MassWorks grant. One is a community with an infrastructure need. And the second is a private housing development that can be paired adjacent to or associated with that public infrastructure need. And we've talked to Jenny and her colleagues, and I think a number of folks here, about being willing to partner with the town to try to get a MassWorks grant to improve Milk Street infrastructure near the Ocean State job lot. I think there's a very good opportunity to do that, hopefully, if we're lucky enough to get approved, between the construction of phase 1 and phase 2, because it takes some time to put the application together, and there's a little bit of a process. So that's something we've even communicated to Jenny, that our traffic engineer has even started to look at some of those design layouts for that package. We would be able to, pay for that initial design. I would say just to be very clear, the traffic study that we've submitted for our public hearing in December is obviously very detailed, and it goes through current infrastructure of the proposed development. And the two basic conclusions are that the infrastructure in place is sufficient to handle the projects. And another interesting point was that a lot of other as of right uses such as medical office, retail, would generate 3 to 4 times the amount of traffic. But those are infrastructure benefits. Social, if you look at the housing production plan or the master plan, there's lots of discussion about increasing housing stock, which makes sense. As a community grows or as a community's diversity grows, the housing diversity should respectively change as well. So increasing the stock or diversity of housing with new multifamily housing that responds to sort of consumption preferences of today is a plus. Adding more affordable housing is obviously a plus. And incorporating a lot of sustainable design measures is another social benefit. And then one thing I feel strongly about, but it's more qualitative, is I guess first, before going into the sort of town benefits, but we feel very strongly that this proposal responds to local planning initiatives, such as or documents like the housing production plan, the master plan. It responds to one of the goals of maintaining a 10% subsidized housing inventory level, and responds quite strongly to Governor Healy's 2025 Comprehensive Housing Plan Initiative, where she and her administration identified a real impending economic crisis and affordability issue in the Commonwealth, which was really the result of a supply side issue. And then the last thing I would say is that we've been working on this site for 5 years, and we try to be very transparent and collaborative because that's just who kind of my father and I are and our company. But one of the things that we hope that does is provide sort of a roadmap about or set a high bar for expectations for future development, just based on sort of that open book, transparent process. And I think there were a number of meetings we had, presentations, whether it was the peer review of the economic feasibility study that RKG did, or the collaborations with the Affordable Housing Trust. But, we want to be invested in towns for a long time. This is not going to be, hopefully, the only project that we do. And we really look forward to it and be happy to take any questions. Oh, one last thing. On the little software comment I made, we've been studying the very rich architectural history of town. And this book was actually written by a Westborough native. And it talks about the history of the town and the community and the architectural history. And this is where we started taking some cues for what the architecture of this building is going to look like. Again, trying to bring in some history into the town, from the community into our buildings. So I just wanted to share that. So
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I will open it up to the board for comments or questions. Anybody want to lead off?
Can just a clarifying question. If you could go to the slide that, I think it was 2 back, you're right there. What does, under infrastructure, PPP commitment, what does PPP stand for?
Sorry, public-private partnership.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We'll keep going?
I don't actually really have any comments. I mean, the site plan project, I mean, the document is how many pages, someone?
643.
Yeah, okay. So we got a lot of information on this. I think the intent here is to provide comments to send to the planning board as part of the site plan process, right?
Yep.
So I'll take this opportunity. I may have some questions, so don't go anywhere, Thomas. We haven't seen any pictures here for the community's benefit. And there weren't in the packet around like actual, any kind of schematics, like we saw the parking lot layout. You don't have any to share at this time, right? Like
Schematics meaning like a rendering, if you
Yeah,
will,
rendering,
or
thank you.
perspective.
Yep.
Our architects are working on that now. They will be available for the December meeting, and as soon as those are available, I'll make sure I'll
Okay.
send them to you as well.
Okay. Okay, so I have some concerns regarding the height request of 5 stories. That 4 is sort of the highest standard in town, other than some grandfathered properties. I'm making the assumption that that's somehow in your model based on the size and the density that you feel you need to achieve, right? Is that why you're requesting that?
In brief, yes.
Okay. So I have some particular concerns because that property sits on a hill on both sides. So 5 stories in that area. And I'm just wondering if, I don't know, I'm not supportive of the 5 stories. I was actually pretty surprised to see that. In our packet, and again, you don't have it here, I don't know if we should call it up, but I did see that an entrance on the westbound side of Route 9, so this would be for the north property, I believe. Thank you. Is proposed to be added. Is that correct? So a curb cut, if you will,
On Route 9?
on Route 9,
Yes.
headed westbound to support the northbound, north
North side,
parcel.
yeah.
Okay. Again, I'm not a traffic engineer, et cetera, but you're coming up over a hill and then descending and then that right turn to Milk Street on the north side, it's a quick turn. I just have some concerns about, maybe on the one hand, a curb cut and entrance will slow traffic down, but I have some real concerns about the speed of traffic and the safety to not only enter the property, but also to exit the property. So again, I'm not an engineer, but it seems a little more intuitive that you would be able to enter the property from Route 9, but not exit onto that, because now you're trying to exit and then people are trying to turn onto Milk Street. So that to me, just sort of intuitively from a layperson's view, did not make sense to me. I don't have a lot of concerns about the parking. You're asking for a parking variance to decrease the number of spots, and I think we just granted that up at Connector Road. Did we not? Not granted, but we said we were okay, supportive of that. So that worries me less. On the south side project, I have some concerns about traffic exiting that property, trying to get on Route 9, obviously going eastbound on Route 9, and the queuing of traffic and the backlog that could potentially create, at rush hour, presumably, backing up onto Milk Street and that whole area. So, again, to your point earlier, other parcels the other development options could potentially create even more traffic. So I appreciate you calling that to our attention. I just have some concerns about that queuing there. So just raising that as a concern.
Can I just ask a question on that? Because I was just confused. So the south parcel, which has that existing building and access on Turnpike, are those staying as is? I just had trouble.
The south curb cut of the south site is basically an existing condition, not the north curb cut.
We're talking onto Route 9 or onto 135 Milk Street?
Both.
Yes, so
Because I don't see it on Route 9.
The south
The
doesn't.
south
have-
parcel doesn't have any curb cuts on Route 9.
On Route 9, okay, that's what I thought.
okay, so you're saying that south parcel has an existing curb cut there?
Yes, right here.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, it does. My
Yes.
daughter
I'll-
went to preschool there, so.
Okay, I take your word for it. Okay. And actually, you raised another question. So would the whole site be developed, like that whole basically parcel? So the bakery, everything, that whole site is to be developed? Is that correct?
The south parcel?
The south parcel, sorry.
Yes, all of 222 Turnpike Road will be developed.
Okay.
The
so-
footprint as shown in the south parcel is the current footprint for 222,
But not the bakery.
not the bakery, correct? There's a bakery right here called
Yep.
Black Rose Bakery.
Yep.
And we tried having a discussion with them about collaborating,
Yep.
and it It's not working.
So that will remain?
Correct.
Oh, okay, okay.
This would
thank
be the
you.
building that exists next to it, right?
Correct.
Okay, and then on the north side, just same reflective question, there is a house, there are 2 house parcels there.
There's
Are those-
currently a home here.
Yeah.
And a smaller home here.
So those would go, those are
Correct.
part of your parcel then?
Correct.
Okay, understood. Oh, okay, now I see on the south side where that
Yeah,
little
so this
etched out
is
mark.
Turnpike here.
Yep,
This is Milk.
okay. And let's see, I think so the other obvious concern, and I was one of the individuals that had the benefit, seems like a long time ago, of visiting the lodge. It's a very impressive building. I want to speak to what I know to be through officials in the town of Marlborough who have, spoken very highly of working with, you and your dad and that in your commitment to community. So that is what you convey here has been actually seen. So kudos to all of you for actually delivering on what you promise. And the parcel there, the lodge specifically, is beautiful, and it really has many amenities. My concern then that I raised with you is sewer capacity. And again, we just approved, or we just gave the nod to the project up at Connector Road, pretty significant development. My question to the planning board would be, in the scheme of what's been allocated plus this, where does that leave us? And so I can't give my full support until I have a better sense of how do all these projects kind of come into play, if you will. I'm very excited about the tax base and understand that there will be student impact. Although your Marlborough numbers, which you provided in our packet, they were helpful to see because it was about, I think, 0.5%. And how long have the Marlborough properties been there?
One of them's been there for 4 years. Another's been there for 2 or 2.5 years.
Okay, so you've got some history there. So I think it bared out to be about 0.5% of your total. You have 475.
475 units and
25.
24 pupils. Yeah.
Right. So there will be an impact to schools that's been talked about a lot online since this project has been out there, and the concern with that. But you've provided numbers that speak to that. So no other comments unless something comes to mind from fellow board members. Thank
Great,
you.
thanks. Let's go next.
Sure.
Patrick?
Sure, thank you. I really appreciate the presentation, the work that you and your father have done in your business. Unfortunately, I was not able to do that tour. I sadly missed that. Great to see.
Open invite.
Well, I appreciate that. Great to see the quality of the work and the craftsmanship that is put in place. So thank you. And it's great to hear, Shelby, your experience there as well. So thank you for sharing that. I do have a couple of comments. First of all, 643-page packet. I didn't get through all of it, obviously, but the piece that I really appreciated was the DIS that was written up, because it gave a really interesting, or it gave a lot of information overview of a lot of the major topics that you talked about already. But nonetheless, I do have a couple of questions for you. My first question to you is, this is going to be a really basic question, which I looked and I didn't see it. Condo units or rental units?
Rental.
These are rental. Okay. All right. I guess I'll tackle the traffic piece first, because like Shelby, I do have some concerns. That particular intersection is probably one of the most dangerous intersections in Westborough in regards to just, I'll call it near misses. Things don't actually get recorded because people are able to work their way through that intersection. But we have a very small bridge underneath Route 9 there on Milk Street. There's a lot of one-way traffic on the returns back. I forget the term that's used for that. But the one-way returns, the stop and slow down of traffic on Route 9 leading into taking Milk Street South, right in front of the South property there. A lot of people, it's just a really difficult area. And I think you're aware that there's some other projects happening further down on Route 9 that will potentially also increase the volume, as well as the potential for slowdowns in that area. On the north side, my concern is, and Shelby kind of hit the nail on the head in regards to that entrance area, that entrance into the property. My concern there is that there's not only proposed that entrance, but also the exit off of Route 9 towards Northborough, but also only a short distance down from that, there's another exit to go southbound into Westborough. It's a very difficult area for the volume of cars that go through there today. If I remember your number in the DIS, it talked about over 7,000, nearly 1,800, vehicles per day are anticipated between the two pieces of property. You could do the math out. I mean, I think that loosely translates to like a car every minute into each one of those properties. Seems like not a lot. It's a lot. And I think that, and that's why I appreciate your presentation and your willingness to partner with the town in regards to opportunities with Mass DOT and some of the things, which is what we're doing right now on the Otis Street Corridor project. So that's great to hear, and I appreciate that, and certainly the contributions to the considerations of the town. But it brings me to a point in regards to the traffic. The DIS, is that that was funded by your company, correct? That was not a third-party review. That was, so the planning board has yet to ask for that, or is that a third-party review?
The development impact statement is part of the site plan application process. It was one of the deliverables required. I personally put it together, but it's a combination of part of that, 600-page document file. It's a combination of the traffic impact analysis study. It's a combination of the stormwater reports. So it's a succinct summary of, if you will, of the overall deliverable. It tries to summarize the architect's findings, the engineer's findings, et cetera.
Sure. A lot of great information in there. I really, for that technical reading, it was very well laid out and helpful. But I would say that I think it's appropriate, and I would ask that the planning board do consider having a peer review or a third-party review.
That is occurring, I think, right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terrific. It's great to hear, and I look forward to seeing that at some future, I know we're probably not going to have you come before us again, but I would still like to see that information so I better understand it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think Jenny has released that to the third-party engineer.
Terrific. In regards to the sewer piece of it, again, that Shelby brought up, I am a liaison to our wastewater treatment plant, so have some knowledge there in my short 1-year history in that role. My question would be, and we don't have our DPW director here, but I would like to understand what the current allotment for that building is and what the increase of that allotment would be proposed on this. So to your point, Shelby, like what is the delta here that, we'll see that increase? And that's something I would want to understand. Understanding that we do have, space available in our current allotment with the wastewater treatment plant. But we certainly don't want to use that on all or very few projects in town. It's a limited resource, and we want to be respectful of that resource. Let's see here. Glad to hear that you're working with the Affordable Housing Trust. I was a little skeptical on your 20 students piece, but actually after seeing your slides tonight and understanding a little bit better about the types of units that you're talking about with studios and 1 bedroom, not that would preclude, single moms or dads having their children there or something like that, but it's less likely that, of 380 plus units that you're going to have, a 50%, student increase, because of that, in those buildings. So I understand a little bit where you're coming from, but I do look to, and I don't know, this doesn't go before the school committee, but I would be interested to understand, I'll say a more unbiased data in regards to that assessment. And then that brings me to another point in regards to the schools. One of my concerns here, again, is the traffic that is on these streets around these buildings that are being proposed. You're going to whether you have 10 kids or 20 kids at each one of those buildings, you're going to have a bus coming out of there multiple times a day, perhaps handling multiple levels, kindergartners all the way up to high school. Turnarounds, are you expecting buses to come into the property? Are you expecting to pick them up on a Milk Street? How will that work? I realize that turning radiuses and things that are allowed for fire trucks are suitable for buses as well. But I think that needs to be understood, because I personally would be a little discouraged or concerned if there was bus pickups on, that Milk Street on either side, north or south building, because of safety issues. EV locations, I think, I don't remember on the north building, but on the south building, all the EV locations were on one side of the building. And I would just ask the planning board to consider whether or not it is appropriate to disperse those around the building so that they're, a little bit more effectively used. I'm not sure exactly, again, to Shelby's point, I didn't see an elevation, so I don't know where the doors are and things like that, as far as entrances are very well located. So, I would think that people would want to be able to get to those in, from a variety of locations, perhaps around the property. And then a final thought in regards to the dog park. Really glad to see that. We just recently put a dog park in the town, so glad to see. I'm a dog owner, as well as I think most of the board members here are dog owners. That's fantastic. My concern here is that 3 or 4 months out of the year, that dog park sits across the parking lot, and dogs will not be able to get to it safely with pavement. So if there's any ability to create any sort of safe mechanism for the dogs to get over there, I would look to perhaps that as a consideration for the planning board and you all to discuss if there's any opportunity to do that, because I do want to see the dogs use that space and use it in a safe way. And similar to Shelby, if there's other questions that come up through other comments from the board, I'll reserve my questions at that time. Thank you.
Great.
And by the way, welcome to the town. Really appreciate this work. Excited about the opportunity for the town and the business. And actually, one final thought. Side note, I'm glad you're speaking our language in regards to new growth and understanding Proposition 2.5. It's a complex topic. One of the things that when developers come before us that I don't always hear is that discussion, but I would say to take it to another level. One of the things that happens with new growth is it also has, we talk about unintended consequences. When you bring new growth to the community, it's fantastic, right? Job opportunities, housing opportunities, et cetera. However, new growth also increases the value of the town, which also changes the tax levy and other aspects, financial aspects of the town. Those things are things that we need to always consider when we're looking at these things as well. So I encourage you to keep watching our meetings, learning more about that, because as a business owner, it's hugely impactful to our community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Just on one of the questions, I thought I had read, I was trying to find it here, but to his question on school buses, I thought I read that it was intended that they were going to be on site, not on the main roads, but
No, that's correct. On
okay.
site.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to hear. I didn't
Yeah.
catch that.
I read it, but I couldn't find it going through all the pages here.
I don't think I'm supposed to respond, right?
No, you can. If there's something
well,
that,
Yeah.
to a question, yeah.
An individual comment and then maybe responses after.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or individual
Yeah,
email
well, 'cause
responses or whatever.
We might pile on, or
Okay.
we might.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason for us to send something to the planning board as a
the
site
bus
plan
thing.
comment on the bus thing because it's
Yeah.
already addressed. We want to make sure we
Exactly.
address it and not
Well, no.
need
Fair
to
enough.
pass it on.
Thank you, Ian, for pointing that
Yeah,
out.
no problem. Sean.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, just a couple quick questions. So on the affordability units, so it was, I think, 10% SHI and then 5% moderately affordable.
Yes.
Confirming those are in perpetuity. I had to think about that word.
Yeah, I believe
There's no
I bel-
sunset provision for those.
No, I believe it's with the deed restriction. Yeah.
In perpetuity. Okay, thank you. I just want to confirm. on that,
Yes.
sir. So the current economic environment is a little uncertain. I guess, what are your thoughts? Do you have any concerns about that and sort of your timeline?
We are very, very concerned about it. As developers, we have to be glass half full, or else we're not working. We have to take, I don't want to use the word rifle approach, but we always talk about that. We have to take a very direct, when we make a bet, it's very direct and it has to have a really good investment thesis. Why does the economy scare us? Number one, it's extremely expensive to build in Metro Boston. It costs more to build this building than right now buildings like it are worth. When I go to an investor and I say, I'm going to build this building for $100, but when I refinance it, its value is going to be 90, that's not a good situation. That's the dynamic in the capital markets right now for real estate. Real estate is like a fixed income asset, interest rate sensitive. High interest rates, bad for values. So costs are high. The Massachusetts economy is not doing well. There's probably a myriad of reasons, whether it's short term or medium term. It's not doing well. I just added a few of these things anticipating that we might talk about it, but business confidence is down. This is really important. Just look at these two X's right here and right here. I'm colorblind, but I think this is, I'm going to get wrong. I'm going to say green and blue.
Close, yeah,
Orange and
yeah,
blue.
close.
I'm bad. All right, orange and blue. Anyways, so the first X shows the unemployment rate last year and the unemployment rate this year in Massachusetts. It shows on the X-axis the labor force participation rate, which means relative to other New England states, there's an active job-seeking labor force in Massachusetts. That's a great thing, but increasing unemployment in that situations means there's something going on short to medium term. So the job market is scaring us right now. Business confidence is the lowest level since COVID. And this is the sort of, when you put all that into the blender, what that results in, it's all very small, but what this is housing production in the 35 largest metros in the country. Boston is dead last for all of those reasons. High costs, very difficult capital market environment, difficult regulatory environment. And, you know, the markets that have produced the most, ironically, not ironically, it's factual, those are the markets where cost pressures have come down the most. It's why markets like Austin, Texas and Houston, Texas, they built like crazy. Now they're seeing -5 to 8% rent growth year over year. So it's, and this is just some snips of, you know, this was a project in Worcester that recently sold for $230,000 a unit. Our project's going to cost $425,000 a unit to build. So yeah, it's really scaring us. If we weren't as experienced and if we didn't have the track record that we have, there would be probably no chance we could do this. All of those discussions we had with many of your colleagues in town hall on what we call the peer review of the RKG economic feasibility analysis was because we were in this situation where this deal is so marginally on the border of working that we had to, in the spirit of collaboration, just highlight some issues we saw. The collaborations we had with the Affordable Housing Trust, and there was a lot of back and forth. It was in that spirit. That's why it's such a scary situation right now, creating more affordable housing, trying to get out of this housing shortage issue in Massachusetts. It's almost a circular reference for a lot of reasons. So, but the results of those long-term could be bad for economic stability for the Commonwealth community. So it's not a good situation right now. A lot of our bigger competitors have, the nationals, some of them have closed up shop in the Boston satellite office, if you will, and gone back to Atlanta or Dallas, Texas, where the mothership is, because it's almost impossible finding a deal, number one. Getting it approved is almost impossible. And then you have to think about if it's financially feasible, and that's very low right now. So it's a really difficult time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No other questions?
Great. Mark?
I think we touched on a few of mine already. I did have a question on the story height, and you brought up the feasibility analysis, and it was my understanding that the 20% affordable was considered feasible in a 4-story building because the cost of a 4-story building was less than a 5-story building. A 4-story building could be wood frame as opposed to concrete or whatever material is used in a taller building. So I'm just a little confused why you would ask for the additional height to increase your construction costs, and on top of that, ask for a waiver of the affordable housing, a waiver of the open space, There's quite a few waivers involved, and I guess I'm just asking if you could go through those waivers.
Sure.
One of my other questions was the traffic, just to recommend a peer review, and I think we already touched on that. You had mentioned in your packet, there was this discussion of, no impact on public recreation or open space resources because there's nothing around there. Well, is this an opportunity to create, partnership with the developer to create some publicly accessible recreational opportunities, whether it be using the dog park or, I'm not sure that's feasible, and I'll let the planning board hash that out. Just get through to my other highlights, sorry. You had mentioned a MassWorks grant. I thought the intention was to do, to work towards a 25% design to get the project moved up on the tip. There's a difference between a MassWorks grant and being placed on the tip is significant. The MassWorks grant is managed by the town, whereas the tip, the state would come in. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just say that we actually had a meeting as recently as today to talk about some of these transportation projects, including the Milk Street improvements that I think have been discussed with this developer. And I think that there's more conversation to be had about what exactly the planning board is going to be asking for. So I think when we're talking about sort of the entire cloverleaf and the need for that to be addressed, that's a much larger project.
Is that going to that memorandum then? It would follow that process, right?
Well,
The memo.
Potentially?
the cloverleaf,
Yeah.
yeah, potentially. I mean, ultimately, that's
I
I think that will come back. I would say that probably not, because I don't think that it would be a town managed project. I think it would come back to this board and for advocacy to the state to get that on the tip. But I guess what I would say is, in terms of what the MassWorks grant looks like and what it's going to be used for, there's definitely further discussion with the planning board
Okay.
that they haven't had yet, because we had the discussion.
I guess I just would like to see, again, it seems like there's been discussion about the developer participating in a solution there. I don't expect them to be the solution. That problem exists and needs a solution, whether they come in or not. So, it's...
To your point, Mark, we would not be recommending that a MassWorks grant be used to address the cloverleaf issue. Yeah. Because we agree that the town should not be managing that project.
Well, again, the
that's the
MassWorks
question
grant
we
is what was
discussed.
addressed in the
Yeah.
packet.
Right, which is a different
All right.
project.
So I just wanted to be clear as to what we're trying to get to, which is to get this intersection put on the tip.
But I think that's a different conversation than this
That hasn't been
project. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Real quick though on that point, Mark, Christy, does that message about MassDOT grant, does that get back to the planning board?
So again, today we had a meeting, myself, Public Works Director, Planning Director, about these transportation projects. And this one specifically, we identified as something that that MassDOT should be managing. And so they would be a future discussion with the planning board likely, as well as the select board, for advocacy to MassDOT to get that on the tip. And this developer might be a partner in that advocacy, but I don't think that that's, to what Mark just said, that's not what the MassWorks grant would be paying for.
Okay. Couple other things. Obviously the concern about the sewer has been discussed, but your packet said that the applicant will pay the town's water and sewer privilege fees currently $1,250 per dwelling unit and $2,500 sewer fee per dwelling unit. Didn't we change that to a per bedroom fee? And I just want to
Yes.
make sure the applicant is aware that that fee structure has changed and is working with the right numbers there.
We are. We've
Okay.
we've discussed that with Chris and Lisa.
Okay,
Thank
all right.
you.
Then that's fine. And last, Carlton Gardens, which is a parcel condo project very close to the south parcel that you're developing, has had significant flooding problems, and I just want to make sure that construction is not going to make it worse. And it sounds like it might even make it better, but it is a couple of lots away, and I just don't want them to experience any more problems. So,
Yeah, to your point, it should improve the conditions of storm runoff greatly.
Ian, Mark just reminded me of a question I wanted to ask as well. In your DIS, you did call out that the stormwater will be running off into I forget the exact term you used, but recessed area between Milk Street and 135. That bridge underneath Route 9 floods a couple times a year. It's not quite as bad as the train tracks down on East Main, but it does flood. And my concern, if I'm understanding where you're proposing that runoff happens, is literally it's actually an elevation above that and literally flows down into that area. So I think I would ask the planning board to just consider what that means to that bridge area.
But correct me, isn't the stormwater retention intended to support the entire property and not go downstream into the bridge area that?
Yeah,
Patrick's-
yes, at a high level. And Patrick, I'd be happy to elaborate with my civil engineer on that question specifically with you if you'd like, but at a high level.
Yeah, I mean, it's more. I would love to know the answer to it, but it's more appropriate for the planning board to really understand that. And they're going to be the ones that approve your site plan. So, I forget exactly where it was in the document, but Shelby, but it talks about it draining down into that area.
Ian, I got a couple things I forgot.
Okay.
If you don't mind. Patrick had mentioned dispersing the EV chargers. I'm actually not sure I support that, because I think the cost to do that would be astronomical, and relative to the benefit. I think there's a reason they congregate those, because the wiring and every infrastructure for those is expensive. So I think that in the grand scheme of things, that's minor. I understand the motivation, but the other thing I was concerned about is in the south parcel, the existing driveway that is going to be used, because I guess that's going to be the main entrance and exit. That's directly across from that little loop back. It's kind of hard to describe, but when you come off of Route 9, that is the route to go to Northborough,
Yep.
right? To go north. There is no current way for your residents to go south, or I guess it would be east on 135 Milk Street from the project. And I'm just concerned that residents
what you're
will
saying. Yeah.
will
Unless they go on Route 9,
decide
do a
to
loop. Or,
just take a left there.
And, right, it's good, because they'd be past.
Well, they could do the whole Cloverleaf,
they do the Cloverleaf, or they,
or
go
they
to Park Street.
or they could take a left
Or they can take a right and then,
and then go down Park,
Park
Street.
Street.
Yeah, let's
yes,
Which creates a different problem.
yes.
which creates additional problems. Yeah. So so I'm just concerned about that entrance and exit point being the scofflaws will just take a left and go down to the Rotary. But I think it happens already sometimes. So
worth mentioning to the planning board.
Yeah, I mean, you just hit on one of mine. I am concerned about that, exactly what you said, and I'm concerned about the flow of traffic getting into town, and the concerns that it might go through other neighborhoods, which again create bottlenecks.
I think what will eventually happen is the redesign of the interchange will hopefully solve that issue. But
how long?
But until that happens,
Yes. No, it's just something I think for the planning board to look at. It's just a concern on that, how that works on the south parcels, is mine as well.
There will be people that will take a left and head down and then around the hump to
Yeah.
take a left.
Yes.
Yeah,
Which-
it will happen. So,
I think most things are hit in mind. Just, I think I read it as well, but this question on 4 or 5 stories, even with 5 stories, it's still under the 60-foot height. Did I read that
Yes.
correctly?
Correct.
Okay. And I think that the entrance and exit pattern south, definitely north, I do echo the concerns. It's the hill. We've got on both sides, a hill coming up, the hill going down. It's just really making sure that asking the planning board to just really look at those, the appropriate kind of exits and entrances there, or is anything could be done to improve that. And then, again, not add anything new here, but just a little questioning is that school estimate. I know you have it for Marlborough, but is that accurate? And just having them, again, evaluate that. And I don't know how they evaluate it, but in looking at it, it is, well, 60% are studios and 1 bedrooms. There are 38% is 2 bedrooms, a small percentage, 5%, 3 bedrooms as proposed. So I guess more concerned about that 43% and what that, does that really equate to the small number of school-age children? So just ask that that be reviewed. I think that's all that I had. Is anything?
can I just
Yep.
ask can you speak to I saw green roof and solar panels, what is one, a green roof, and the sustainability aspects?
Sure. As Mr. Silverberg mentioned as one of his questions, that is one of the waivers, the request that the BA district allows for if you qualify for the open space waiver. The regulations are 60% open space. You can qualify to 30% open space if you accumulate 12 points. And that point system is prescriptive, it's detailed, it's something that we've gone over with Lila, the sustainability coordinator, and Jenny, and outlined how we would get more than 12, but outlined that specifically. So there are various things I can mention that get us those 12 points. Having the majority of the energy consumed in this building being powered by electric air source heat pumps, being, LEED silver equivalent, providing other measures like, let me see, actually, I have it right here, hold on. I'll just pull it up so we can all review it. 1 second. 1 second.
Interpret green roofs to mean plants.
So this is the document. This is the document we went over with Jenny and Lila. This is each category of the open space waiver eligibility, and again, my color blindness is going to do me a disservice here, but the first column on the left is where we are saying we are committing to that and will do that. And at the very bottom, you can see, you can't see it, I apologize, but we're accumulating anywhere between 18 and 28 points right now. LEED certifiable, air source heat pumps, Green roofs, the question about green roofs is the regulations allow for 3 different kinds of green roof. So on top of the roof, where we'll have, roof decks that are activated, we are going to have portions of that. We've done them before in different buildings, but they're sort of like almost pocket parks, if you could imagine.
Usable space, like
Yeah,
really green.
for sure. Yep.
I didn't know if that was like a material or something.
EV charging stations are another one. High albedo roofs are another one, which just discusses the reflectiveness of the roof. So this is what we've gone over with those folks to make sure that they agree that we can get 12 points.
All right, thank you for that explanation.
You're welcome.
My only other comment is a bit subjective, is Westborough somehow loves brick, and please no brick. Please no big brick buildings that look like factories or something. That's just me, but we'll leave that to the design experts. No brick.
Is this project have to go to the design review board? Do we know?
I wouldn't think so. It's not down.
Do you know if you have to go to the design review board?
I don't know. I thought that planning board was in the BA district, the design review board. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
I could be wrong, but I think
I don't
that's the
think it
case.
does, but
I don't think it
It's just
does,
one
but
opinion.
Yeah.
I should be the one who knows,
Yeah.
but I don't. So
so I think we had comments, questions, but want to give you the opportunity. You're writing things down, but anything you had responses to it, open it up for responses so we can
Thank you.
determine if things do not need to go to the planning board.
Thank you.
If that's okay.
I'll try to hit ones that first were repeated. On height. Height was a discussion we had early on, knowing that it was going to be one of those levers that is deterministic for economic feasibility and full transparency. When we were discussing whether or not 4 or 5 stories, whether 5 stories would be really looked unfavorably against, we learned that during the process of, perhaps it was the MBTA Zoning Communities Act, perhaps it was the BA district regulation rewriting, that the concept of 5 stories was discussed and that it wasn't an immediate no way. To your question about cost, the cost to go from 4 stories to 5 stories, it's an increase, but it's insignificant relative to the economic feasibility gap that an extra story could get us. One of the things that is most difficult in this environment for any new development is the fact that land sellers, as you can imagine, we own homes or condos or apartments, are usually the last to the party to realize that there is a real estate recession, which we're kind of in right now for our business. So we have a fixed land price, and we had to try to figure out a way to provide a community that the town would be proud of, that we could finance, and that we would be proud of. And in that blender of economic feasibility analysis, we're also thinking about open space, parking, cost of construction, et cetera. So 5 stories is what we needed economically to make the numbers work. And we wanted to do it in a way that respected the 60-foot height limitation, because in our mind, from the pedestrian experience, that's more important. And this site has tremendous grade differential. If you're looking at the north site, imagine you're just standing on the Jersey barrier of Route 9 looking at the north site. From west to east, it slopes about 30 feet upward. So one part of the building is dug down, one part of the building is level, so it looks consistent and it's less than 60 feet. So we feel from a design perspective, we can make a very, very attractive building, and less relevant, because I definitely heard the comment about grandfathered buildings, but in trying to figure out if there are precedents, there aren't a lot, but Arrive down the street is 9 stories. And this building, with all due respect to that building, is going to look much, much better. And one of the things that we're really going to try to do, even though this is Route 9 and even though this isn't a super pedestrian friendly area, we're going to try to tie in those design elements from the historic architecture of downtown into our building so that future development and planning purposes in general can see that you can still make those fabric connections design-wise. So long story short, 5 stories is really what we need to do to fit everything else in. 30% open space, 15% affordability. So it's an economic feasibility issue that we're going to be able to produce a product that you're very proud of design-wise. So that was one of the waivers. That was the height waiver. Open space going from 60 to 30. Frankly, it would be impossible to develop what we call an infill project with 60% open space. The truth is, across sort of all of the projects, 30% is pretty average. So the open space was another sort of, to fit the programming you need to make this economically feasible, you needed to do that. And a lot of the things that we are accumulating these points in, we either have to do because of code or we just do because it's good design and the customers like it. So that was one of the other waivers that many of you have asked about. And parking. So parking, 1.4 was a number we've kind of always had in our head for 2 reasons. Mainly that's the market demand, in our opinion. That's what our project in Marlborough, which has 475 units, has 1.4. And I think as Ms. Marshall mentioned, Connector Road, Lyman Street, they were all approved between 1.2 to 1.35, if I remember correctly. So we feel comfortable it meets the market, which is really most important. You want to make sure you provide enough parking for your customers, obviously. So that was on the waivers and the height. Sewer allotment, big one. I've been involved trying to figure out a way to work with this community and our land seller since 2018. So I'm well aware and have studied the AECOM sewer study. In fact, part of the collaboration and just discussions with the town was including our proposed project in that proposed column of AECOM's, whether it's 2.57, actual flow plus projected. Our numbers were part of the projected, just in discussions early on with the community about trying to figure out a way during that 2 or 3 year period while that study was going on. So the sewer allotment issue is, we're fully aware of that and how sensitive that is. But because we are going to be a fraction of the, let's call it, available surplus, for lack of a better term, and because we strongly feel that overall this project is a real community win-win, if I was being asked, we think it's because it's, I think, 0.05 of the available capacity, 62,000 gallons per day. It's not an amount that is going to take up the majority of that available surplus, but fully aware of how sensitive that topic is. On schools, same thing. I mentioned the tri-board meeting that I listened to, and just generally the concern about municipal costs. And at the end of the day, there are really a few things, in my opinion, about that conversation that should be discussed. The first is national trends reflecting local trends. Demographic trends are influencing school enrollments, not housing production. My alma mater, Harvard, I'm involved with the Joint Center for Housing Studies there. They put out a great report in 2025 this year about household formation and demographics. And it's all about how household formation is slowing down. Households are forming at older ages, and we have an aging population. The same theme, more or less, was reflected in the housing production plan, the town's plan, slowing population growth. And MAPC, the Metropolitan Area Planning Committee, has put out these reports called The Waning Influence of Housing Production on Student Enrollment. And it goes through since 2010 to 2025, how enrollments statewide have gone down about 3 to 5%, as housing production has gone up 6 to 10%. And similarly in Westborough, since 2015 or 2017, enrollments are down 3%. So it's the empirical data, in our opinion, proves that enrollment trends are not influenced by housing production as much as is talked about, and fully understand how sensitive the topic is because of the very real and honest conversation that goes on with level servicing budget, which makes perfect sense for a community like Westborough. So the school age pupil generation, how is that data real? We got it right from the town, and we can send that email. It's from Meredith Harris in the mayor's office. We just asked him how many public school children are in this project and this project. So that's how we got that information. And so that's a little bit about school data and sort of the empirical national trends, Metropolitan Area Planning Commission trends that discuss that the leading secular themes behind that discussion isn't about housing production. It's demographic trends, people getting married later. So that's our opinion on and actually there's reasons why multifamily housing is a positive if it means it's stabilizing enrollment, meaning there are some logical arguments why declining enrollment and the fixed costs associated with that and possible state funding associated with enrollment numbers, how stabilizing enrollments, could be a good thing. But so that was school data. Went over the waivers. Entrances was another one. Ms. Marshall, I know you mentioned. So in the site plan review, or in the public hearing for site plan review, we'll have our traffic engineer present. Bob Michaud from MDM Transportation Consultants, who's a local engineer. I think he has great experience with the community. And the general idea is a few things have to be accomplished. First and foremost, safety. And generally speaking, as I understand it, the more you elongate or stretch the distance between those entrance locations, the safer it is. The more time there is for maneuvers, the less chance there is for conflicting maneuvers to happen very quickly or next to each other. So he'll be able to more eloquently describe that, but he touches on it in his traffic study, and it's all about safety and elongating those entrance locations. On the north parcel with that proposed Turnpike Road curb cut entrance, he's working with Mass DOT Region 3, who has jurisdiction over that area, on that, and that's going to be fully coordinated by the time we get to the planning board. And another thing too that is incorporated into that analysis is safety, number one, communication with Region 3, and then also accommodating the tremendous amount of grade. The south parcel, if you're looking at the former preschool, it goes down towards where that office building is being built. So it's a real, we have probably the most experienced multifamily civil engineer in Massachusetts on this project, and it took some time to figure it out. So that's on the entrances, curb cuts, buses. We talked about that in the materials. I know it was a robust data dump, but we do have those swept path analysis that show the circulation paths, and that will be contained on site for the school buses, safety being paramount, obviously. Let's see, did I miss any comments that were stated more than once? I don't think so. Yeah, so I'm sorry, I was a little bit
No, I think
scattershot.
that's great.
I was
I
just
think
trying to
it-
respond to some of those.
Yeah, so I think that's great. I know we've gone a long time here.
Yeah, sorry.
I don't want to cut it off with comments, but we should look at what we have on the list, Christie, for report to the planning board, but open up to anybody else with further. I guess this was great. Thank you. And
Yeah.
you gave a
I know
lot
I
of
went over,
really good
but
responses.
there's a
Nope.
lot of information as we talked about, and it's hard.
It's
to
a
try to-
project that we hear a lot about from folks in town, so
Yeah.
we want to do our due diligence
Sure.
here, and this is our opportunity to get it
course.
to the planning board. So thank you for your patience
Thank
with
you.
us too.
Thanks very much.
So we have concerns about the 5 stories. The entrances on Route 9 and queuing of traffic, the sewer capacity and where that leaves the town in terms of allotments, the need for a third party or peer review of traffic information, looking for input from the school to the extent that they're able to do any sort of assessment of the information provided by the applicant, discussion about EV locations potentially being dispersed, the safety of the dog park and dogs getting to the park through the parking lot, potential to work with the developer to create open space and recreation opportunities, acknowledgement that Carlton Gardens has a flooding issues and they want to ensure that this won't make any of those issues worse. And then concern about runoff flow into area that's currently floods in that bridge area. And then the entrances and exits at the north building, inability to drive directly into town. And then there was the
I
comment
think that's the
about
south building.
south building. And then there's the comment about the brick material being used.
And I would just say on the traffic study piece of it, one of the things I don't think I mentioned was that it should include pedestrian and biking, because that is, obviously there's a retail area right near there, and I'm anticipating that people are going to want to walk
Yep.
from the residence to do shopping perhaps. So,
Yep.
how would that work, right? What are the issues there?
Mr. Welch, can I just respond to that quickly?
Sure.
And then one other thing on the schools, I wrote it down. I spent a lot of time on it, so I just want to mention it on pedestrians and biking. So we are incorporating those EVs. We're going to, we thought the idea of the via transportation system was a fantastic one. So we're going to have dedicated ride sharing spots, dedicated via ride sharing spots on the property.
Great.
So customers can quickly and safely get out of the building, get around the community. Not the most bike friendly area, obviously, but we are going to have indoor bike storage, and what we always do is we have branded community bikes where you can take a bike, it's got the branding and the logo on it. So we're trying to do everything we can in an area that's not pedestrian welcoming, or and try to reduce vehicular trips as much as we can, as safely as we can.
To that end, I just don't know if I think it's too far north, but is there any tie-in or connectivity from this property in a safe way to the proposed B-Walt, which I think sits south of this property based on what Jenny shared, but,
Going through the new development,
right,
One
but
property over.
connectivity, the south property is north of that, but thinking about, is there any sort of connectivity? I'm presuming it's back on Milk Street, but just something to think about for the planning board. No comment
Sidewalk.
needed.
Something.
Yeah, sidewalk, whatever, just that,
bike lane.
yeah, bike lane, yep.
Just one more thing on the schools. Again, and this is just sort of data mining from information on state websites, but I thought it was very relevant to the discussion. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, it's called DC, was trying to understand the relative, how resourced the schools were, because again, I have 3 young kids, public schools, very important to us. In understanding this is a sensitive topic, outside of the net fiscal benefit topic, how are the schools operating? And really the only data I had was some of the board presentations, as well as this DC information. And what we looked at is the student to teacher ratios in the state, in this community, and then in surrounding communities. And this is just the information that the state website had, and I thought it was relevant because it shows, relatively speaking, a well-resourced public school system. The student to teacher ratio statewide is 11.8. Neighboring communities, Hopkinton, Grafton, Southborough, Marlborough, Northborough, Shrewsbury, 12.7. Westborough, 11.6. So on the margins, but relatively speaking, slightly more resourced. You can not super strained relative to neighboring communities or the state. So I had that.
Do you have any we focus on schools a lot, but one of the largest demographic in Westborough is now our seniors. Baby boomers have boomed, right? So you made me think of this because you were talking about the VIA, and it got to me thinking about our new WRTA program and whether or not you, through the planning board, would consider also allowing some sort of functionality spot for WRTA to come in and pick up. But then it beckons the question of, what do you expect the demographic of our senior community to be at your facility? Do you expect there to be a population there or not?
Yeah, I think there's probably what we call like a barbell demographic. On one end of the barbell, you might have the folks that are employed by the great, hardware, life science, medical, the Chan Medical School out in Worcester. You might have some folks, just because of demographics, in the middle that are forming households, maybe trying to save up to buy their first home. And then on the other end of the barbell, you will have a baby boomer demographic. In our suburban Connecticut projects, in our suburban Metro Boston projects, you usually have a little bit less than a third of that demographic in the building, because at the end of the day, it's a convenient, very nice way to live. Everything's central. You never have to go outside for your mail or to go watch TV. So we anticipate that this building will be designed to also accommodate, that demographic, the 55 to 75 baby boomer demographic.
Terrific. Thank you.
Okay. We've got our notes. Tom, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for spending the time with us.
Great information. Thank you.
Thanks. Apologies for everyone else waiting. Important project, as I think folks know. So, okay, moving on to item 5. This is Chief Bernardi with proposal for acceptance of a COPS hiring grant and amendment to classification plan. Welcome back, Chief.
Other place for you. Same for me.
That's the sky view.
Yeah.
The other one is the face.
Okay. Not sure.
For some reason, I didn't know it was more.
No.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for having me. Todd Minardi, your police chief. I have Lieutenant Shipwright with me. I'm going to open it up and talk a little bit about why we're here, but Lieutenant Shipwright wrote the grant for this program, so I'm going to ask him to speak to the specifics of the grant, and then I'll follow up with some staffing issues. So I'm happy to say that we're here to speak about the U.S. Department of Justice COPS hiring grant and our successful application to add a position to the police department. This is a nationwide competitive grant program, and I'm just really super excited that we were chosen, and I'll get into a little bit why I think that happened in a minute. But about 42% of the applications nationwide were approved, so I think we're very fortunate to be among one of the ones that were chosen. So this really focuses on community engagement and proactive policing. That's really the purpose of the COPS hiring grant, and I believe this our partnership with the DOJ, and this program will improve the continued implementation of a range of community-oriented policing strategies and programs that we currently do. These initiatives aim to foster a stronger relationship between our police department and our community, improving public safety and enhancing our community engagement. So I think you all got a letter in your packet from Movement Forward. It was a support letter that was written as part of our application. And I think that speaks a lot to why we were chosen for this grant. 2 years ago, we sent Lieutenant Shipwright out to Georgia to attend a nationwide conference on community engagement. And one of the main players in that conference were this Movement Forward organization that they're out of Georgia as well. And they do a lot of work with the Department of Justice on advancing police initiatives and community policing initiatives across the country. So I think when you read that letter, you see that we're involved with them and some of their national work. And I think that speaks a lot to why we were chosen for this. I think the letter had a lot to do with it. So Movement Forward in their letter spoke to the fact that we're working directly with them on a national initiative to address rural hate crimes. They're doing actually a survey with the University of Maine. We were one of 3 departments nationwide that were chosen to take part in that program, so we're proud of that. They also stated that our commitment to transparency, innovation, and trust building in public safety makes us a valuable partner. And the COPS hiring program would allow us to expand our personnel capacity to carry out critical community-focused initiatives. So I'm going to just ask Lieutenant Shipwright to speak specifically about the grant program and what that entails for us.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you for having me here tonight. I appreciate being able to speak on this. I'll try to keep it short and keep my enthusiasm and excitement down a little bit because it was a pretty big deal for us. And I think it means a lot for not only our police department, but our community as a whole. Like the chief said, it was a nationwide grant and it was very competitive to try to obtain this. The partnership with Movement Forward was actually part of the Faith in Blue group as well. They're the forefront of community policing within the nation, and we're happy to partner with them on anything they want to do for the most part because they have great stuff, and I think they feel that our ability to interact and build our partnerships with the community fits their model and fits what they're trying to do, and they want to use us in the future as a model for other agencies, not just in Massachusetts but across the country as well. So going back into the grant itself, it is a Department of Justice grant. The grant initiative, it's administered by the Department of Justice and it was available for state, local, and tribal law enforcement agencies to rehire police officers to engage in community policing activities. And that includes whether it's just active patrols and getting to know the community, but also community events and working with the community to solve problems on that level. The benefits that local law enforcement get is we have another body out there that's able to do these things and participate in the events that we do. We take a lot of pride in all the events that we do as a community engagement group, as a department, and helping out not only the town, but the other departments within the town accomplish their goals as it relates to working with the community and going from there. So overview of the funding, the hiring grant will provide up to 75% of approved entry-level salaries and fringe benefits for full-time officers for up to 36 months, with a minimum of a 25% local match and a maximum federal share of $125,000 per officer position. We were awarded the one position for the $125,000 over the 3-year period. There is a commitment to it. It is at the conclusion of that 36 months period. When the federal funding has ceased, we do have to retain that position that was funded through the grant for 12 months after that. And then we have to implement, the plan cannot be to fill current staffing levels. It has to be above and beyond what we're currently authorized at that. Chief put together kind of an example budget here that we can look at. And as you see, the first year, the federal amount would be $50,000. Second year, $45,000 down to $30,000 for the total of the $125,000. Based on the local match and current salaries, the local for the first year would be approximately $53,000. Year two, $64,000. Year three, $83,000. The two things that kind of take of note: the FY 26 wages already saved from the 2 vacant positions, one starting at the beginning of the fiscal year, as well as one that began in September, does cover that, the local match for FY 26. The new position we would anticipate to start at the step 2, whereas at step 2 pay and a 25% educational pay, whereas the 2 vacant positions were both at max step and also a 25% and 20% education. So long story short, the FY 26 should cover that local save, or that local match. And then just finally, on the timeline here, so 1995, the police department was awarded a very similar grant, cops hiring grant, and was able to hire 1 new officer position then. I'm sorry, getting click happy here. There we go. 2018, and I'll touch on that in a minute. That was when the town's strategic plan came out. Fast forward to May 2025, so almost 30 years later from the initial cops hiring grant. We applied for it. It's a long process to get the acceptance, to fill out all the forms, to do the research, and to get the letters of support. We were awarded in October, and we're hoping for approval here in November, and then moving forward, new position filled in December, and then the project going through 2028. I'll refer back to 2018, kind of reviewing the Westborough strategic plan from back then. Critical success factors were, one was the proactive public safety, working collaboratively with one another and the community, whether it's collaborating with the fire department on search and rescue, supporting the schools with graduations, and or the senior parade. The police department is always there to help out. That hits one of the critical success factors. Another one we hit with this is the dedicated workforce. Recently, we were highlighted in the FBI LEADA Insider magazine talking about the sabbatical leave plan for in the supervisor contract. It's now kind of gone out nationally, and we're getting calls and emails from other departments across the nation, including larger departments, requesting information on how we brought it together and how it works. So we're kind of getting that national spotlight and being able to work off of that. And then finally, just the fiscal responsibility. Westborough is a community that values strong fiscal management. Accepting this grant means enhancing public safety and fiscal responsibility. In addition to this grant, we've been awarded just under $300,000 in federal and state grants within the last 12 months. This gives us an opportunity to expand our services, strengthen our partnerships with the community, and invest directly with the community. And finally, the vision statement from the strategic plan, it simply states Westborough, a vibrant, inclusive, safe, attractive, connected, and engaged community for a lifetime. With the acceptance of this grant, we align with that vision, and I think, I thank you for the time, and I'll pass it off to Chief Bernardi.
Thank you.
So I'll just touch a little bit about staffing issues and why adding a position is relevant and still important. We are at 40 sworn officers right now. go back to the study that I've spoken about many, many times. I know we've been talking about police staffing for probably 7 years. I get it, but the 2019 study is all we have right now. I've spoken with the town manager about updating a staffing study. Those conversations continue, but the 2019 study really was about a 5-year plan, and it looked at us being at about 44 officers right now. So that study does still have some relevance. We understand the concerns about taxes. It's certainly valid, but underinvesting in public safety can lead to long-term costs as well. And we do believe by prioritizing staffing to meet recommended levels, we ensure a safer, more inclusive environment for all and demonstrate a commitment to being proactive rather than reactive. I know I've talked about that many times before you, what the difference of reactive and proactive policing is. So this is just a little bit of a graphic showing like currently 40 sworn officers, we're at about 90% of the recommended level. We add 1 for the cops grant, we go to 93%, still below the 44 sworn officers. And that study back, the MRI study back in 2019, spoke a lot about the call volume and the calls per officers and what was the acceptable range between about 600 to 700 calls per officer. We're far exceeding that, and we're getting close to about 1,000 calls per officer right now. If you look back at that study and where they projected us to be at in call volume in 2024, they pretty much hit the nail on the head. We were pretty close to what their expectations were, and our calls have increased since then. And we're certainly not going to go backwards. We're only getting busier. So really what we believe this position is going to do is expand our community policing initiatives, help us to be at least a little bit more proactive. We believe it's going to affect our officer recruitment and retention by showing that we proactively pursue staffing efforts. We also believe it's going to strengthen our collaboration with the COPS program for possible future grant expansion. And it's going to enhance our data-driven policing strategies. And we're going to continue to collaborate with Movement Forward. So just finally, a last statement, the Westborough Police Department's partnership with the U.S. Department of Justice COPS hiring program will assist us in continuing to foster enhanced community policing and strengthening our police force. As we look ahead, we remain steadfast in our commitment to build upon this successful collaboration, continually improving public safety and community engagement. With that, I'll take any questions.
Great, thank you, Chief and Lieutenant, appreciate that. Open up to questions, comments.
I would just say first, congratulations. Thank you. You're doing, in applying for the grant, it's exactly what this board, and prior boards have asked of town departments. And congratulations, this is a big one. I fully support it. I don't have any questions. I also want to thank you for the thoroughness of the presentation and tying it back to a lot of things we've discussed over the years. Bringing back the study, I know it sort of feels like maybe like an old sitcom at this point. Not funny, but that's but it's important. It's important that we did invest time and effort into that study, and it is the benchmark that we have. And again, I just love. And I would encourage if residents have questions to reach out to our police department to ask about this. There are lots of questions. There's always a lot of questions about, federal funding and policing, but you hit the highlights of the importance of reducing rural or improving rural policing, reducing hate crimes. And again, congratulations on the University of Maine selection of 1 and 3. It's a big deal.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Other comments, questions? Patrick.
Sure. So yeah, thank you for all the work. The presentation answered a lot of my questions, and I really appreciate the fact that you recognize that tax burden issue. I mean, we are sensitive to that right now, obviously, the discussions that have gone on across the town for the last year or so. And Shelby, I echo a lot of your comments as well. You answered my two questions, but it raised a couple other little questions. So, you mentioned the call volumes. We have 40 sworn officers right now. You're getting 1,000 calls a year per officer, or we're getting so we're getting 40,000 calls right now on annually.
Yeah, so that's patrol level calls.
Okay.
So that doesn't include, that's just looking at officers on the road that answer the calls. So total, sworn officers are at 40, but when we talk about call volume per officer, we're talking about just the patrol division.
Okay. So that
So really what the study talked about was a third of your time should be spent reacting to calls, a third of your time is spent in administrative work, doing things like reports, court paperwork, all those things, and a third of your time should be spent being proactive. And that's not just a random
sure.
number that people came up with. That's actually from the IACP, the International Chiefs of Police Association. Those are numbers that they put together as far as national standards.
So remind me again, what is our officer? What if you remove the command staff? What is the?
So we have 23 on patrol,
Okay.
and then we have 5 corporals and 5 patrol sergeants.
Okay. All right. One of your slides, if I heard the terminology correctly, was there was a period after the grant that the grant requires us to maintain that position fully burdened on the books for 1 year afterwards.
Correct.
So my question would be this, and maybe it's just a point for consideration as to how that would work. Does it either get absorbed into your budget of that year, or somehow, or are you going to look for a raise and appropriation at town meeting, at which point there's a chance that might not be approved? So how would that be handled at that time?
So much like we did with the opera positions, we gradually shift the burden from the grant into our budget. So even starting this year, if this is approved, we'd be using money from the budget to partially fund the position. FY27, it would be a little bit more on the budget.
Right.
FY28, there'd be a little bit more burden on the budget. And then by the time the grant expires, it would be fully absorbed into the budget.
Okay. So
It's a gradual step increase.
So it wouldn't be a warrant article. It would be the budget line item of
Right.
the police department on
Yeah.
the warrant. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. That helps.
Great, thanks, Patrick. Mark or Sean?
Yeah, I'll just say, gentlemen, thank you both very much for coming tonight. Nice job. Yeah, and I appreciate, you've taken opportunities here to sort of smooth the impact of these increased hirings, and I think that's a very effective way to add to our police department. We've seen it also done within the fire department as well, and just thank you, and look forward to supporting the position.
Thank you.
Mark?
Yeah, so anytime we add staff, I need to be convinced that we need to add staff, and I think you've done that. When I think of recommended calls per officer at 600 to 700, and they're fielding 1,000 plus, that's like 150% capacity. And while some people can maintain that for short periods, I think in the long term, if you're working at that capacity, you're going to make mistakes, or something's going to suffer. So I'm convinced that it's needed. I'm not necessarily concerned with, the shift to the budget, because, I hope that the town will agree with that. And we have to make that decision now, whether we want to take, a portion of that, take the grant and get a portion of that defrayed. And I think that's a good way to phase that in. I'm a little confused by the numbers on it. The base salary is 77, and I think the total cost for 26 is 103 and change, if I read that right. But the position won't start until December. So how much are we really spending in fiscal year 26 in relation to the $50,000 grant and the $60,000 match? Or are we, so I guess the 103, that's a little more than a half a year. It's like 2/3 of a year.
So a couple of things to consider. The federal grant actually started October 1st because it runs on the federal fiscal year, which is October through September. So when we look at that, and that's really an example of a budget, it's not necessarily hard numbers. So part of our FY26 and FY27 is going to be captured in the federal fiscal year, FY26. So it bleeds over into our FY27. So for our budget purposes, part of that number would come out of our FY26 budget and part of it would come out of the FY27 budget. It really comes down to who we hire, what step they start at, what they have for an educational degree. That's going to set their salary, but the grant also covers fringe benefits. So if they take town insurance, it can also offset the cost of the insurance.
Yes, I think that point.
So we're going to get the full benefit of the 50.
We'll absolutely use the whole 125,000.
Okay.
The interesting thing is the federal government calls it a 75-25 match, like they're providing 75% of it. But for $125,000 over 3 years, that's certainly not 75% of a position. Some of the language in the grant stipulates that each year the federal portion has to decrease and the local match has to increase. So that's why, like when we showed those numbers,
Yeah.
it incorporates the whole 125,000, but the local match, there's some room there where that could change.
Okay. All right. That's, I think, answers my question.
Yeah, just to go with it, and I think it was in our notes here too, but basically the grant covers the 3 federal fiscal years, but for us, we'll actually go through 4
Yeah,
municipal fiscal years because we'll get a portion of it even into 29.
right.
Because it'll
Exactly.
cover the first 3 months, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
No, go.
No, you go ahead because I don't have really anything to add
Just
besides what others have said.
clarification on, is there any risk, given the federal state of the state? Is there any risk of, we've been awarded the grant, that it could be clawed back and now, we're in an awkward position with a great officer? So is it guaranteed, is my question? Or do we know?
I would love to say it is. I mean, the money's allocated and it's been awarded.
Okay.
So, I can't
And well,
speak.
and so do we get, I just don't know, do we get staggered, I just don't recall, staggered grant payments, or we get it
I
all in
believe
one lump
it's
sum?
it's reimbursement, right? Yeah, it's a reimbursement. So we would quarterly submit our grant reimbursements based on,
Okay.
whether or not we're paying for insurance premiums or if it's all going to salary or
Yeah,
whatever.
whatever.
So it's a quarterly reimbursement period.
So there is, it just, the state age, it's important to ask the question, right? So there is some risk there. Have you considered asking that question of the COPS program in terms of
we
risk?
certainly can try.
Okay.
We can reach out to them.
I think it would be helpful just to understand what sort of answer could be. It doesn't change my support for it.
Yeah.
But I think we should be, just federal funding, given the lack of,
So,
I
Yeah,
feel like
any
there's only
clawback.
one guy you ask.
certainly it's a good question. We're executing, when we accept grants, we execute contracts with the government. So whether it be the state or the federal government, so they're contractually obligated to give us that money. I know.
well, given this grant, I'm actually optimistic this one actually would be paid. And that's not intended to be like a negative political statement, but so good. Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It's a positive.
Yeah, I think to that contractual thing, they break the contract. We're not tied to the contract any longer. So some of the things we talked about, 12 months. My support for this is not that we can't support it. Hopefully it's 12 months and beyond, that this continues
Oh,
on. That's what we're
absolutely.
trying to do here.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
I think to that point, I'm convinced that we need the additional officer
Yep.
regardless. So if for some reason the grant doesn't come through, I still think we,
Yeah, and I
Maybe
just think
the
my final piece, and it just really echoes what Shelby said, is just thank you. This is, you've heard it from us, is that this is what we were looking for. You've gone through the effort. You applied for the grant. This was a request that came for us to work to move this forward, but do it in a way that made it not a full burden on the town. And so I appreciate it. I know the work that went into it. On behalf of the department, I am fully supportive of this as well. So, but just wanted to pass along my thanks. I would look to entertain a motion.
I move to accept the 2025 COPS hiring grant to add one additional patrol position to the police department, and further to amend the classification plan to increase the number of patrol positions by 1.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? 5-0, 5 being present. Thank you.
I appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Ian, if I could ask, we have 2 members of Sustainable Westborough here. I'm not sure if they're planning to stay for the whole meeting. I didn't know if it's been a long meeting so far. I didn't know if there's an opportunity to bring on
Yeah.
agenda item 8 forward.
I'm fine to do that.
We can speak to the agenda item though, if you're ready.
Yes. So moved-
People pay good money for those seats. You sure they don't want to be on them longer?
I just wanted to recognize that they.
Okay, so we will move to item 8 at the request of Board Member Welch, which is the Sustainable Westboro Board Structure Review.
Yeah, so the since Amanda's come on, she's done a lot of work to make sure that all of the boards and committee vacancies are properly reported on the website, and certainly with having a vacancy in her position, as renewals were coming through, there was just a lot to sort of review and make sure we had in line. So in particular, one was related to Sustainable Westboro. So there's really 3 actions that we're asking the board to do this evening. Essentially, we have the board has appointed 3 individuals as non-voting associate members. One individual, and additionally one individual who had wanted to be an associate member as a full voting member. So the first request is to ask the board, right now Sustainable Westboro only has 2 associate members on it. And working with Sustainable Westboro and the individuals who have been designated associate members, there's a request to increase the number from 2 to 3 for associate members. So that's the first question, or the first action. The second is that the board had voted to appoint Gerald Q as a member of Sustainable Westboro. Later determined that the appointment would be a reappointment as an associate member. However, since we already had, again, 2 associate members plus this other one that was a full voting member who should have been an associate, we're asking that the board rescind that vote. And certainly there's been discussion with him and his continued involvement with Sustainable Westboro, just as a volunteer rather than an associate member. And then the last question, or the last action, is at the July 15th meeting, we had Hassa and Nitya Talahala were both appointed. One was appointed as an associate member, the other as a full voting member. They were both actually applying for associate members. It was unclear in their application which positions they were applying for. So we're asking that Hassa be appointed, that vote be amended and Hassa be appointed as an associate member. So you have 3 motions, but ultimately what you would be doing is adding 1 associate member so that all 3 individuals, all 3 students could be associate members, rescinding that appointment of Gerald Q, and then making the amendment so that the full voting member moves to the associate member.
Okay.
Follow all of that.
Thank you for doing all that work and research
Yes.
on that, and
Yes.
helping us out.
Cleaning it up. Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
I just had a quick question, Ian.
Yep.
More, I guess, you and Christy. Are these the Does it matter in the order of the motions at all, or is this the proper? Is this the proper order of the motion?
I think it's,
It's, yeah.
Yeah.
the
Okay.
proper
Yeah.
order.
And then and would you want these motions individually, or do you want them all together?
Probably, just given what they are, I think it'd be easier to do them individually.
Yeah,
But
Okay.
so
that's
too.
up to you.
because if one doesn't, I don't know that there'll be an issue, but if one
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
pass it.
that's fine. I'll be willing to make the motion, but
Perfect.
obviously we've got to have a discussion first. So.
Yeah, I just want to confirm that Gerald, he's okay with how this is moving forward. Is that correct? I'm seeing yes.
Yes.
Sustainable Westborough members, yes. Gerald is okay with the change.
Yes,
It's a little bit awkward. Just want to make sure we're not offending a volunteer here.
It is awkward, since Amanda uncovered all this and presented it all to
Gee, could
us.
you just identify yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry, Peter Flynn, Chair of Sustainable
For
Westborough.
people at home.
Thanks. Yeah, you're good.
Okay. I sent an email to Gerald, letting him know the situation. Before we realized the situation, I had met with Gerald, and he had informed me that he was unaware Sustainable Westborough meets on Wednesday nights, and he cannot attend meetings on Wednesday nights because of his commitment to the track. So given that situation, it seemed reasonable that with 3 associate members, that we extend the invitation to him to continue to participate. But as an associate member, it really wouldn't work for him or work for the committee. But I have not heard directly back from Gerald.
Okay. All right. But there's been engagement. It sounds like I'm seeing nods over there as well. So yeah. Okay. Thank you.
perfect.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions? Not, I'll entertain the motion. Motions,
I'll move to increase the number of Sustainable Westborough associate non-voting member positions from 2 to 3.
Second.
moved and seconded. All those in favor? It's 5-0, 5 being present.
I'll move to rescind the appointment of Gerald Q as a member of Sustainable Westborough, originally made at the September 30th meeting. I don't have to read it. Yep.
Second.
All those in favor? 5-0, 5 being present.
I move to amend the July 15th, 2025 vote to designate Sarahasa Talajala as an associate member of a Sustainable Westborough.
Second.
All those in favor? It's 5-0, 5 being present. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Okay, let's move back to item 6, the home rule.
Stay.
Yeah. Item 6, home rule petition for a petition signature requirement.
Yeah, so the, under Article 26 at the October town meeting, that's not right. At the October town meeting, the town voted to authorize the select board to submit the home rule petition to the state legislature. So this is your vote to move that forward. I have had discussions with Representative Donahue. She advised that the last time this went through the state legislature with the other community, it took about 10 months. So, hopefully it would move a little bit more quickly, but we'll certainly put it in to send it tomorrow and get that moving forward.
Great. Is there a motion?
I move to authorize the town manager to submit the enclosed petition for special legislation for the town.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor? It's 5-0, 5 being present. Great. Moving to item 7, this is the consideration of committee structure, select board liaison appointments for 250th American Revolution Anniversary Committee. There's been some changes when Christy and I talked on this of committee structure. Post that, we did get notification of one member that wanted to be service supportive or associate, so I'm not sure that we need to change. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but right now we have 7 members, and I think there are 7 that are looking to serve as members, with Mr. Linane
That's correct.
looking to be supportive. So originally we
So
were
our
thinking
packet is correct.
our packet is correct.
Yep.
when we put the agenda together, the thinking was we may consider, when the request was made of me, I was like, there's 8 folks, do we want to interview them and rule one out? I asked to put on the agenda that we would perhaps reconsider the number of members to not maybe turn a volunteer away. In this situation now, we only have 7, so it fits what is the, what we already created in terms of established committee with 7 members.
Makes sense.
And then to that point, we, with those folks, we informed them that they did not need, they had submitted their interest, that they did not need to come here to the meeting to speak to us. So that's why they're not here. 'Cause-
You ready for a motion?
Yes,
Okay, so I would move to appoint Lydia Goldblatt, Gary Kelly, Roberta Brown, Andrew Ramsey, PJ Maloney, Carla Cook, and Casey Cullen to the 250th American Revolution Anniversary Committee as members.
Seconded.
any comments or questions?
I would just thank Mr. Linane for expressing his interest, and knowing Bill, he'll be involved, and he'll be a great resource to the committee.
Agreed. And thanks to the 7 others
Yes,
that
of
put their
course.
names in. This is exciting. So,
Yeah.
okay, all those in favor? 5-0, 5 being present. Okay, item 9, planning board.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Are we selecting a select board liaison?
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Thank you.
I would be happy, but if anybody else is interested.
I'm happy you're happy. I
Yep.
would move to appoint Sean as the Select Board Liaison to the 250th American Revolution Anniversary Committee.
Second.
Comments or questions? All those in favor? Thank you.
Sean.
Sean, can we call it something else though, like America's Birthday Committee, like ABC? You gotta think of these
ARAC.
I don't, well, we'll have to see. I mean, I think.
You're a
these are all
non-voting
over
member,
the
you can't
state,
talk.
so
Yeah.
we
You
got
can't
to be-
suggest.
This is true.
Yeah,
This is true.
so you
I
just,
need to double check my liaison rules.
that's right.
Okay, now moving on to item 9, planning board letter regarding downtown zoning.
So we received, or you received a letter from the planning board asking for more information about the vote that was taken by the select board and then the ultimate motion at town meeting to refer this back to committee. They're looking for clarification on, so that they can make informed modifications to the proposed zoning article. I know we received today from Mark, or I should say a similar memo was sent to the Advisory Finance Committee. Today we received from Mark detail about things that he was concerned about, and so that's also included in your packet for this discussion. But ultimately, we'd be looking at putting together a response to the memo for the planning board.
Great. So I'll open it up for discussion.
I guess I'll just ask a question in the letter, and I certainly appreciate the planning board, asking the question. Good question to ask. It says in their letter they incorporated that feedback into our revised approach and supporting materials. I'm assuming they're saying that I don't see any supporting materials in the packet, so I'm assuming that was in regards to town meeting, the sort of.
Right, because there were exhibits.
Okay, I just want to understand. Yeah.
That's how I,
And-
that's how I
and-
understand it.
And I think they did address many of the questions, but I think there were some that still were outstanding, and I'll just leave it at that.
Do you want me to go through all of my, I did send a pretty long list of questions that I had, discrepancies that I found. I just felt like,
I think, I was just going to say, I think it would be helpful just to bullet them, and if we, as a suggestion, if we need elaboration, just because that's a good starting
I know.
point.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
I don't know. if the
So
board-
the Warren article was not the whole zoning change. If you realize the Warren article also had referenced 5 exhibits. So those 5 exhibits were available on the planning department website, but they were pretty important to review as part of the zoning change. And I don't necessarily know that I agreed with all of the changes. It was represented as a downtown zoning change, and I felt like a lot of the changes did not necessarily there were changes that were made in the zoning that were not just to downtown. There were I'll just go through it sequentially, and I'll try to only do the high important stuff, not the Scrivener's errors. And my problem with the some of the smaller things is that it comes back to haunt you, because the credibility of the zoning, the more mistakes you have, they snowball. If you have a footnote that doesn't belong somewhere, or is improperly numbered, or just some of that stuff is easy to clean up, but needs to be cleaned. In my opinion, should be cleaned up as part of a zoning change. But the first item I had an issue with was the fact that there's no zoning, there's no parking requirement in the downtown. Now, I realize there's a lot of small lots where it might be beneficial to not have a parking requirement, but the change in zoning requires a minimum. All right, so backing up. Currently, we have a special permit requirement downtown, right? This would allow only site plan review, but you would have to have a minimum 10,000 square foot lot. Otherwise, if you're under 10,000 square feet, you'd still have to go for a special permit, right? And in that special permit, the planning board could waive the parking requirement, right? But if you're over 10,000 square feet, I believe you have room to include parking. And while I don't think parking is a problem now downtown, I don't want to create zoning that could result in a parking problem 50 years from now. And so that was one of my concerns. Why are we not requiring parking and enabling the planning board to waive that if it is deemed in the best interest of the project, or if there's a contribution to public parking in the vicinity, or contribution to pedestrian or bike improvements in the vicinity that would make the need for parking less important. So that was number one of my big ones.
Well, I guess, Mark, if I could just stop you
Okay,
there for
why don't we stop there?
Yeah, just for a second. I mean, when I saw your notes, and I really appreciate the work you did on wrapping those up, it helped refresh things in my mind. And obviously, you've got a wealth of knowledge in regards to the planning board. They boiled down to kind of big items and littler items, and I'll say, items that I think that are needed to be more explanation about, versus items like you just described, which seemed to be very much more like you were opposed to a particular change that they were making, not a clerical mistake, not a confusing statement. That was a very black and white scenario that you just outlined. I'm, I guess, a little concerned as I hear that. For me, I don't see my position on this board, nor do I see this board's position as overarching the planning board and telling them what they can and cannot approve on this. In that particular scenario, they have the authority. They can make that decision when they put that warrant article together and they submit it, and that's what they've done. They could then have a choice now to go back and decide whether or not they want to change that based on our feedback. But I feel like I don't want to get in a situation where it's I don't want to tell them what to do. I just want to voice our concerns. That's my point. Similar to the site plan review tonight.
Can I ask, do you think we're not? Do you think we're
Well,
not?
I guess I got the impression there it was like, well, I'm opposed to this, as opposed to we need a clarification on this.
Well, Pat, just to
That-
be clear, the planning board doesn't pass zoning. the planning board recommends zoning changes.
Correct, and that's what I
to
just described.
Town meeting.
Yes, that's
And
what I
this
just described.
board is required to make recommendations to town meeting on the warrant articles.
Right.
And we were asked in this for a written explanation why we voted not to support the zoning change, and that was one of my reasons. And I don't think that's, I'm not opposing the intent of the zoning, because I think the intent of the zoning is right. I do think we need zoning change downtown. There are certain facets in the zoning, the way it was written,
Yeah.
that I don't agree with
Okay.
and I can get
That
into
makes
more of
sense. That's helpful. So thank you for
I'm not
clarifying.
trying to tell the planning board what to do, but they wanted to know why I didn't support it, and that's why.
Yeah, and likewise, I'm in the same boat. You know, I didn't.
Well, yeah, I think, and just to be clear, I think as a board, the vote was 3-2 to support the motion made by Mark to refer back to the planning board.
Correct. Refer back to committee.
Which is basically
So,
the planning board.
planning board, right.
You mean in our meeting, because I wasn't at town.
In town meeting.
Right.
That's what the motion,
was
it
already-
didn't get, it didn't get,
It didn't get revoted. It went in the book, didn't get revoted.
Okay. Okay, so the meeting, our vote here is where
Yes.
they're asking for clarification, so now they're taking it back to committee. What are you asking us to do? Is how I interpret their request.
Because basically what was in the booklet was that we voted 3-2 to refer back to committee.
Right, got it. And you didn't revote, I'm sorry.
We did not
Got
revote.
it, okay.
So, should I go on? Okay. So, the next issue I had was on Exhibit B, which was really the table of allowed uses. And there were several questions I had on this that I never really got answered. There's a new definition of row or townhouse. And these are allowed by special permit in the BA Highway Business, Gateway, and the IC, which is the TOV. I don't know if those were allowed in those zones before. Why is that? Why are those? And should they be allowed in the BB? Because that's a yes. That's not even special permit requirement. So I'm just a little confused as to does that open up substantially more residential opportunities in what I don't think are residential zones? So that concerns me.
Yeah.
Sorry, just, so you're concerned with it in the 3 other districts, BA, G, and IC? The question is, were they allowed?
Were they allowed before in those zones? In highway business, I don't know that row and townhouses were allowed in highway business.
Yeah.
Right. And again, this gets back to my point that we're doing a downtown zoning change, and I'm questioning what I think it may or may not be changes in other zones.
Right. Yeah, okay, so that's,
And in fact, here's another example.
but I guess it's, sorry, just to follow on that. But you're also concerned about it being not special permit in the downtown zone.
In the downtown zone. Well, I'm not sure that's. I mean, I think it might be okay in the downtown zone.
Would you say that generally your feedback back to the planning board is that there appears to be changes that are not
Downtown.
solely in the downtown, and that should be presented and articulated in the presentation
If that
of
is
the
the case,
future
it should
warrant
be,
article?
yeah.
Well, that was my general point there.
Yeah.
That I mean,
better
the
way
same
to
thing
say
goes like you.
Good way to say it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So you want me to skip past some of these other uses that were changed? All right. I think that's a good way to summarize it,
Yeah.
Christy. But they created all sorts of new definitions. Off-site accessory parking. Actually, that was one of my criticisms. They had a parking facility definition, but in the table of uses, there's an off-site accessory parking facility that was never defined. So I don't even know what that is. Drive-through facility, food hall, public market, all these were defined. Parklet, outdoor cafe seating, and they made determinations about whether these were allowed in zones or special permit in zone or not allowed in zones, but many of those zones were not downtown. And
goes back to the point.
there was contradictions, like why is outdoor cafe seating allowed in the IA, which is industrial A? You can't even put a restaurant in an IA, I don't believe, right? So why would you need outdoor cafe seating? It seems like these things just weren't thought through, or if they were, I don't understand the reasoning. And then the entire conservation zone, I brought this up at the meeting, like under the use, drive-in theater, amusement park, or similar commercial outdoor recreation. In conservation, they have yes with a footnote that Concom would have to approve it. State law prohibits Concom from approving that. It's never going to be approved. It should just be no. I don't really understand why we complicated that with a yes and a footnote. And then getting back, I had the question, like, how many, like, the minimum lot size is 10,000 square feet. The minimum frontage is 100 feet. And if you're a corner lot, you have to have 100 feet on both streets. How many lots is that really benefiting? Because 10,000 square feet is like 0.22 acres. And when you look at all of these lots, and I went through many of them, like, yes, the gas stations are half an acre, but the 7-Eleven is not 10,000 square feet, right? Like, or you have lots that are 10,000 square feet but don't have 100 feet of frontage, or you have lots. Again, I think the 7-Eleven is considered a corner lot. It's got 127 feet of frontage, I think, on one street, but only 90 on another. So now all of a sudden it has to go through special permit anyway. And the whole point of the zoning was to streamline that from a special permit process to just a site plan. So I'm not clear how many lots are actually getting a benefit from the zoning with the way it's written. I had an issue with the definition of outdoor cafe seating because it's on a public sidewalk, and patrons must be served food in order to dine outdoors with an alcoholic beverage. When you talk about public sidewalks and alcoholic beverage, I wonder at what point the select board needs to be involved in that decision. I don't.
They have to fully be involved in that decision.
Okay.
I mean, so I had not noticed that, and I asked that.
The definition of parking facility says that it should be available to the public. Well, does that mean that if a private apartment building has a parking facility that they have to create public spaces within their parking? I'm not sure that was an intended part of that definition. And then off-site parking facility is allowed in the highway business, but not in the ID. So if Cold Harbor, for example, wanted to create an off-site parking facility in the ID, which is right next to them, they couldn't, right? So I'm not sure those things are thought through. The definition of townhouse or row house says it shall be synonymous with garden apartment. I've been doing real estate for 33 years. I know of nobody who considers townhouse and row house synonymous with a garden apartment. Completely different. So I just don't know where that definition came from. Let's see. I think that the story height, they should have been more selective about removing some lots from the BB. They took the overlay district and just changed it to BB. Well, the overlay district gave special permit authority over it to say, well, we don't want a 4-story building on Cross Street or Parkman Street, or, you know, where I think they should have gone through those lots and said, well, maybe this isn't an appropriate location for a 4-story building. And their response was that there's a 50-foot buffer zone. Well, the 50-foot buffer zone is half the lot. And it also, the zoning also says that you can not build any further than 10 feet from the street. So which is it? Because if you have a 50-foot buffer zone, you have to build 40 feet from, or well, maybe not. You have to build 30 feet from the street, and there's a contradiction there. And I think that in that case of the contradiction, the developer wins, right? So I just don't know that we're. I just would like to think through a lot of these scenarios a little more, with the worst case result in mind.
So, question here. So these were all the exhibits. The exhibits were not in the warrant, in the warrant.
They were referenced.
They were referenced, but they aren't actually, like, the exhibits can be modified at a planning board meeting.
No.
Or did they?
No, they're all
The
in.
exhibits are part of the approval. It was a little bit different than how we've done it previously, where everything is in the
You would have seen the
warrant.
exhibits too.
Yeah. But the exhibits are part of the zoning, and so that requires that town meeting
But
approval.
they didn't have to be in the warrant.
They were included by reference, right?
Which is different than what we've usually done, which showed them all.
I will tell you that it went from a 1-page warrant article to a 7-page warrant article, right?
But I
And
think the
that-
7-page warrant article, pardon me, sorry about that. It shows like the magnitude of the change. A
Well, that's,
1-page warrant
again,
article-
I just didn't agree with that from a standpoint of, once I started looking at those exhibits, a lot of my questions were like, this isn't really downtown, or this, wasn't in the presentation that we had, or.
And I think to Patrick's point, I mean, any one of us can disagree with it, but it's really how the planning board choose to put something forward is their decision. And that may or may not have influenced the outcome.
So I think to that comment, it's about it sounds like it's about how it was presented and the fact that just
So that was
by reference.
advantageous, was not advantageous to kind of the town meeting and historic.
Understanding the full impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, so I think some of the good news that came out of town meeting, right, was this was sent back to committee, which means that they can bring it forward. They don't have to wait 2 years to bring this back to town meeting. But as a result of that, I think that there's a certain expectation that this board has out of this process. I'm assuming that the planning board wants to get our full support, right, on a warrant article. That's typically what happens. So is the action here for our planning director to come before us and talk about these exhibits and explain, or at an appropriate time? How does this process work? They're going to go back, they're going to hear this feedback, and Mark, I'm everything you laid out, you're much more knowledgeable in this space, but everything that you've laid out makes sense to me. There are reasonable questions to be asking and should be answered before you support something like this. So I guess what is.
Yeah, so I think that the request that came to us was in that letter that basically said, we've done this, we don't understand, can you provide comments back? So I think what we're being asked to do is provide comments back to them for them to take into consideration as they look at this. It's still under their purview now as to whether they bring this forward again or not, but they wanted to get these comments. If they decide they're not bringing it forward, there's no reason for them to come in front of us. If they decide that they want to bring it forward and, are making changes, or does they want to decide to bring
Whatever
it
case
forward,
they want, right?
we would want to ask them to come in front of us.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I 100% want them to bring this
Right.
back. I don't.
No,
I
I
don't
think
wanna-
they understand
I-
it, but that's, I mean, again,
that was
that's-
where a lot of my struggle came from, because I don't want, I don't want it detract from the effort that they put into,
Right.
trying to make a
No,
positive
but I think
changes.
it goes back, though. They have to decide as a planning board, this is their jurisdiction, is if what they tried to do is, and what comments are, do not align, and they have the prerogative to not
Right.
change.
Right.
But then that may come with consequences.
that makes sense.
So again, but I think from our side, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, what the letter requests is, what we're talking about here is basically they're asking for input from us, they're asking for input from the finance committee, who also voted to support referring it back to committee, what the concerns were, so that they could review, discuss, and address as they decide appropriate.
Do you want to hear what I have
Yeah.
so far? Okay. Some changes specifically in the use table seem to affect other areas of town that are not specifically in the zoning, so those should be articulated and presented in the context of a new article. There's a request to review the zoning changes for conflicts, so identified the change in the conservation land with the footnote that something might be allowed even if it's not actually able to be allowed, and then the I think you had mentioned the buffer requirements in the downtown might be in conflict. All new uses should be accompanied by new defined terms, because there were some that were missing. I guess another conflict would be the outdoor seating, where some of those requirements are actually under the purview of the select board. And then, let's see, looking at the definitions around parking facility and the townhouse row house, concern about just an overall review of the story height and being more selective and making sure that all of the streets where the 4-story by right would move forward is appropriate. And then just an indication that the way that it was presented to town meeting wasn't advantageous to the town meeting's understanding of the full impact of the zoning article.
Others that folks.
Do you want me to go to page 2 now? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, all we can do is submit those comments unless there are any others from board members. My concern is, I think the letter that came over, and I'm sorry, my computer just died, so I don't have it in front of me, seemed to express, what I read in it was, we already addressed your concerns, some of which I think we just talked about. So what else do you want from us? I'm paraphrasing. Now, there are some that Mark brought up here new that make sense to me that require clarification, so I think it's still worth sending the comments over. I do worry a little bit about what happens next, but I think that's just,
Well, it does say, we respectfully request that the select board provide a written summary of the reasons for the referral, including any outstanding concerns or expectations for revisions. So,
Anything further? Okay. Great.
we don't need to vote?
if you're comfortable with what I
Yeah.
tried to read, I'll put that together into a memo.
Okay. Yeah.
Everyone okay with that? Okay. Item 10, request to approve meeting minutes of October 14th and October 28th.
I move to approve the meeting minutes of October 14th and October 28th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Thank you as always.
Thank you, Amanda.
Okay, town manager report.
We've been meeting the last couple of weeks for the Regional Emergency Communication Center. The governing board is finalizing a budget modification with State 911 and developing a final contract document for the owner's project manager agreement. We expect to sign that at our meeting next week on November 13th. Related to the impacts of the federal government shutdown, yesterday, the superintendent and I issued a joint letter to residents advising them of resources available to those impacted by the government shutdown, specifically related to the impact on SNAP benefits. So that was distributed to school families via their communication portals, posted to the town website and on social media. The senior and social services director and I have also been in contact with the Westborough Food Pantry. So she's actually working with the different departments to add donation bins to town buildings, so folks can donate, and then they'll be collected by the food pantry. The fiscal 27 and budget and capital plan is well underway. So we began our budgeting this week. Budgets were due, and next week we'll be meeting with individual departments to go over their budget submissions. Department heads submitted their capital requests in September, which is earlier than we've done before, and that's really because we've been working on developing that long-term capital plan. Since the submission, we've had some great meetings internally with department heads, townside as well as school, looking at the overall picture over the next 15 years. And I think that that's been really good conversation. So we're refining that. We're going to create a narrative document so it's more digestible for the community. And we'll be talking to the Capital Expenditures Planning Committee about that, and it'll be ultimately presented to the Select Board when we present in January, as we usually do. So that's one of the goals that we've had, and I'm pretty excited about that. Last week, last week, the assistant town manager and I met with the only remaining member of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, Ian Lyons, to discuss how we might revitalize that committee. So we'll likely be coming forward over the next few meetings to ask the board to amend the mission and makeup of the committee. But in the meantime, we would welcome anyone who's interested to apply to that committee, because I think we're excited about where we might head. And then we're going to be offering some employee training. So Chief Minardi and I have coordinated to offer rape aggression defense training for Westborough employees later this month. It's an 8-hour course that will be split between 2 sessions. And that's a program that's offered. We have certified RAD instructors in the police department, and so they're willing to offer that to employees. So that's a good opportunity. In the senior center, they've been hosting different cultural programs this fall, including the Moon Festival, Japanese cooking class, and Diwali, with more to come. Their Shine volunteers are busy during open enrollment. At this time, all appointments have been taken. Our new watercolor painting program has been very successful. I think there's lots of pictures on the town's Facebook page, and it definitely looks very successful, taught by one of our high school students. Also, they're hosting a Veterans Day breakfast on November 10th and would like to encourage all veterans to participate. The Senior Center supporters are putting on their holiday fair at the Senior Center on November 15th. The library has expanded its hours and is now open full days, 9 to 5 on Saturdays, offering a full slate of programs for all ages year-round. Recent and upcoming activities include intro to quilting, board game afternoons, book clubs, and tech help drop-ins. On Wednesday, November 6th, the library will host a concert with Bonnie Cochran in the Great Hall, sponsored by Westborough Cultural Council grant. And then as part of Kindness Week through Westborough Connects, the library will host an intergenerational night of fun on November 14th. And we'll present Sing It With a Smile with Lori Gardner. In its temporary location at 1500 Union Street, the library continues to see strong community engagement and participation in programs. And then the library director gave us a brief update on the renovation project. They're continuing in October, their continuation of exterior masonry work, including the rebuilding of both chimneys. Layout for metal framing of the new restrooms and area have occurred on the main floor, and then water line installation and construction on Main Street, which maybe I took Sean's thunder there. Sorry.
Yeah, that's quite all right.
Great, thanks for that. Okay, issues and correspondence to the Select Board. Patrick.
Yeah, sure. Pull my notes here real quick. So first of all, I want to say thank you to the DPW for doing a great job down on Chauncey Street earlier today. Looks like they did some work on the culvert on the little Chauncey Bridge there, and it was an effective repair. So thank you for getting that done. It looked like it was a one-day job, from what I could tell. So great to have that done quickly. A reminder to the community, the Senior Center is hosting a Veterans Breakfast November 10th, 9:30 a.m. For our veterans. And then also wanted to let folks know that on Wednesday, November 26th, Senator Moore is going to be at the Senior Center from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. Um, I also went down to the food pantry today. I wanted to understand the impact of the SNAP program, federal government reduction, to see how that was. Had a nice conversation with Paul Leupold, who's the president of the Westborough Food Pantry, and learned about all the great programs that they've been adding to in regards to fresh produce that has been added in. I mean, it actually really smelled amazing in there because there was a ton of produce, cauliflower everywhere. But you know, and I've asked him to provide some updated information that he could share with the board in regards to obviously any impacts that he sees, and also to understand the trending that we're seeing month over month, year over year in our community, age based. So I just wanted to share that with the board that I've reached out and
Thank you.
asked that information. And with that, I'll end.
Great, thank you. Mark,
Okay.
doing things around today.
All right. I had a couple of meetings. I had a ATSC, Active Transportation and Safety Committee meeting on, I think it was the 27th, where we talked a little bit about the speed audit results on Lyman Street at Chauncey Lake, and the desire to reduce speeds in that area, particularly by the beach, no set result on that, but I think that's something that the committee will be working on. We also talked about Andy Konigsberg letter about road striping, and they just, the committee would basically just like to be involved in that process if it moves forward in the spring, or whatever comes out of that. So I think those were the two big things. I may be forgetting something, but in the interest of time, I will move on to the Community Preservation Committee meeting. The committee met also on the 27th, and we reviewed 5 preliminary applications for eligibility for funding for the CP through CPA funds. So we've got 5 applications, and we'll be discussing those further, with the idea of bringing some of those, or some. The application process is open, so we may get more, and at some point the committee will bring those to town meeting for approval. Presumably in the spring we'll have some projects. You already mentioned the Veterans Breakfast, but on Veterans Day, the 11th, there's a Veterans Day ceremony in front of the Forbes building at 10:30 a.m. I encourage you all to attend, rain or shine, to honor our veterans. And Saturday is Scouting for Food. So if you're interested in donating to the food pantry, you can reach out to the Boy Scouts.
Flyer should be up, you just leave it on your door, so it's a little different than the other ones. You don't have to sign up to get picked
I
up.
stole your thunder there.
Yeah, but no, I had it on there, but I think it's good, and I think it relates back to the concerns on the SNAP benefits. Hopefully people will.
Well, if you wake up Saturday night and realize you didn't donate, then you can go on Sunday to Stuff a Cruiser at from 11 to 1 at Roach Brothers, or 1 to 3 at the Westborough High School. The police department and the Rotary are sponsoring that. So we'll see who gets more food for the food pantry, the Rotary or the Scouts. My money's on the Scouts. And I think that's all I have.
Great, Sean.
Okay, yep, so Library Building Committee met, it's the 3rd Tuesday of each month, but we had the update from the library director, so straight from the source, but project is moving along, and still on target and on time. Next, we had a youth commission meeting last week. I have to say the 4 high school members of the Youth Commission are really doing a terrific job. They're off to a fast start, and I look forward to attending those meetings. And then the only other thing I had, and maybe somebody else was going to mention this, it's a little early, but a reminder that at the Knights of Columbus on Thanksgiving, if you don't have plans for Thanksgiving dinner, the Knights of Columbus, 1 o'clock on Thursday, the 27th. All are welcome. Reservations are requested by Friday, November 21st.
Thank you. Shelby?
Okay, sure. So we did have an EDC meeting this morning. I was unable to attend. I will watch the recording and update. Sorry. EDC meeting, I was not able to attend. I will update the committee, the board on what happened at our next meeting. Jingle Bell Fun Run is taking place on November 30th at 4:30 to benefit the Westborough Fire Foundation. This is a family-friendly event hosted by the Fire Foundation to promote community and kick off the holiday season to encourage health and fitness and to support the foundation and the Westborough Fire Department. The entry fee is $25 per participant. It's a 0.7-mile fun run walk, and it will coincide with the annual tree lighting downtown 30 minutes before the tree lighting. So basically start sort of up by the golf course and will come into town. So kind of a nice, really nice addition to that effort. And you can register at westboroughfirefoundation.org. The Rotary Club is working closely with the rec department on the downtown lighting. Thank you to the DPW for its collaboration, future collaboration with the putting up the banners and making sure the banners can be wrapped and all that stuff. So great partnership. We've worked out, I think, a really good process between the Rotary Club and the town and the professional services that we use to decorate. That event the lighting actually is on November 30th, sometime around the parade is around 5:15. I'll have some more details, but mark your calendar, Sunday after Thanksgiving. So it'll be a good night. And I think that's all I have.
Great, thanks. Just a couple things. Trustee of Soldiers Memorials met last night. Unfortunately, I got stuck at work and then in traffic, so missed the meeting, but did want to highlight one of the things discussed and talked about before. But if folks haven't seen, the new Veterans Monument in the new cemetery is up, and it looks beautiful. Really did a phenomenal job. Thanks to the trustees, members of this board that have been on it through the years, but also to the DPW, who really have kind of shepherded the project through as it's under their purview. But just all the work that they did there, especially Derek Sari on that side. So exciting to get that completed as we move forward with the opening and naming of the cemetery. That does bring me to a comment that came up in the meeting last night, but just a question that folks that had put in names for the last time that the board decided to go back out, that folks were dismayed that they got no feedback on the proposal, and without the feedback, or that they would appreciate some feedback, any direction on submitting the same improved or new proposal. So I'm not sure if that's something we want to consider, although it expires by Friday, right? November 6th.
So I don't think that we understood that the board wanted to provide feedback. I think that we were just leaving them in the running and would consider them with other names.
Perhaps notification to them that they are in the running. Is that appropriate? Just a quick email to them, or?
Is that an update to the process? I know. I'm not.
Well, hopefully this won't. I mean, ultimately, any other additional names that we get, then we would post a public hearing. So we'll list all the names again.
There was feedback provided by the Historical Commission that we could refer them to.
Yeah, and I can go back to, I mean, it's, I think we noted in our meeting, they are all under consideration, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think just it, I mean, if we have an email for all of them, can we not just say what the outcome of our meeting was? And also that the historical commission provided feedback? Like, can we just send that?
Yeah, sure. I don't know that they were submitted via email, so we can get their contact information because everything had to be with the petitions. So everything was submitted in hard copy, but we'll see what we have for contact information.
Okay.
Great.
Go ahead.
The only other couple things that I had then was just a reminder for folks tomorrow night, Westborough Good Scout dinner, Doubletree Hotel, 6 p.m. honoring Jim Tepper. And then also just a week prior to the Jingle Bell Run is the annual Westborough Turkey Trot on November 22nd. Signups are open. I wish I knew what it was, but I think westboroughturkeytrot.org, I think is what it is. So just a great community event for that one as well. And then
I forgot
the
one
rest of you
item.
checked off mine, so that's good.
Okay. Just one item. Can't believe I forgot it. Westborough Connects Kindness Week kicks off Sunday, November 9th, runs through the 15th. You can find all the events at westboroughconnects.org. And the kickoff event is Sunday the 9th, 2 to 4 p.m. at Westborough High School. And lots there. I won't even try to list. But if you're interested, go check it out. Events are free. And it's all about connecting in community and kindness. Need lots of that.
Great. Thank you.
No need for executive session tonight.
No need for
No
executive
need.
session?
Oh,
Wow.
my God.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, thank you, Westborough TV.
Second.
Yes, thank you. Karen Henderson and Westboro TV. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0, 5 being present.
Surprising.